This is Atomic Shinobi, and today I'm going to narrate second and final part of What If Naruto and Shikamaru Hide Their True Self. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Always wasting no time. Let's start the story.
It was comparatively quiet after lunch. To make Haku and Inari laugh, Shikamaru and Naruto were forming shapes out of the shadows. Tired from all the food, Kyuubi had made the decision to go back to the seal. The three adult ninjas were talking about how they would prepare for the impending battle. While enjoying a water fight, Ino and Choji were relaxing by the nearby lake and walking on the water to enhance their chakra control. It was best if they took a day off since tomorrow would be a long, exhausting day. It didn't sound very appealing to train hard for 4 days. In the meantime, the Sandaime Hokage in Konoha was going through the papers that Sanin and his lone female pupil had sent him. He had been asked by Naruto to send Tsunade and Shizune Mizuki's body. The outcome was pretty terrifying. Given that he had consumed a potion made by Orochimaru himself, it appeared from the battle he had witnessed between Mizuki and Naruto that Mizuki had animal DNA infused with his own bloodstream. And his guess was correct. According to Tsunade's analysis, the substance that Mizuki consumed contained a combination of animal blood, venom, and some of Orochimaru's own DNA. In actuality, animal chromosomes were being utilized. Additionally, those chromosomes initially mixed and appeared to improve the user's abilities when they entered the bloodstream. The body would then attempt to reject the chromosomes and blood that were coming in. The body would attempt to defend itself, believing that a disease was attacking it. Essentially, after the effects subsided, the body would attack itself, resulting in an immediate death. According to Naruto, Mizuki's bloodstream contained snake venom, which would eventually spread to her heart and cause the aorta to burst, killing her. In most cases, this was true. According to Tsunade, the venom would actually reach every tenketsu point and seal it. The venom would become more powerful if it was combined with Orochimaru's blood. The user would not receive any chakra and would not be able to heal themselves if all of the tenketsus were sealed. All of the tenketsu points were sealed, which resulted in the aorta bursting. It resembled a bottle of Hyuga Juken, or gentle fist. All users would undoubtedly perish. Orochimaru seemed unconcerned about the fate of his test subjects. The most unsettling information was this: how far had his errant pupil deviated from the straight and narrow? I'm to blame. My favorite was him. Back then, I ought to have killed him. Hiruzen was lost in his thoughts. The snake, the slug, and the toad were his three pupils. Toads and snakes are naturally antagonistic, but slugs have a tendency to favor toads. Despite their marriage, the toad and the slug were childless. His own nephew, the toad's pupil, rose to become Konoha's next toad and Hokage. The maelstrom was the child of the new toad's marriage to the whirlpool. With his faithful shadow at his side, the maelstrom would bring about a significant transformation in the world. Thus, the cycle continues. The transition into the next shinobi era would undoubtedly be spearheaded by Naruto and Shikamaru. When combined, those two were a formidable force. Orochimaru would wager all of his porn on them taking him down. The following day. All right, my wayward troops. Don't stop. That's right, Haku, keep your fist out and legs bent. No, the other way. Ah yes. Today begins the ultimate test of whether or not your pathetic prune-like bodies are in shape or not. Kakashi. Stand tall, boy. Do not slouch, and for Kami's sake, put that damned book away. Kyuubi was a driver of slaves. There are no disagreements there. Their day had begun precisely at 7 o'clock. Tiny fires set their hair on fire, violently waking the Nara, Uzumaki, and Hitaki family. After all, Kitsune had a crude sense of humor. Asuma was going somewhere else to train his 3 genins. He had decided this the night before with Kakashi. It was a rushed breakfast. After saying goodbye to the others, Naruto, Shikamaru, and Haku went out the door to a remote location with a fox, Kakashi, and Zabuza. Kyuubi had transformed into his human form, which included red eyes, red hair, and a tall frame 6 feet 3.2 inches taller than Kakashi's. The kanji of Makai ran down the back of the cloak he wore, and he was dressed in a crimson and black garment. Overall, he resembled Namikaze Minato with red hair and a darker side. They had been attempting to learn the fundamentals of Kitsune Ken at the moment, but it was very challenging. Consequently, Kakashi had taken on his typically slothful demeanor, which was exacerbated while residing with the Naras, and this infuriated Kyuubi. After turning a page, Kakashi remarked, did you say something?" He was greeted by a powerful firestorm that obliterated Icha strategies. Kakashi collapsed to his knees, trembling in horror. My precious, she's gone." Zabuza approached Kakashi and offered the younger man a consoling hand on his shoulder. Losing the valuable pornography was the worst thing ever. At least 3 copies of his book had been punctured with ice senbons by his own daughter. It was a bad idea, and he was aware of Kakashi's suffering. "I know how you feel, nephew, don't let it get you down. So come on, stand up again, straighten your shoulders, and let's finish this goddamn training so you can get the extra volume you carry around out." Kakashi's eyes were watering as he gazed at Zabuza. "Oji-san, you truly are a man who can understand this loss. Thank you for pulling me out of my 2-minute funk." In response, Zabuza pulled Kakashi to his feet and said, "No problem, kid." The heads of the other spectators were covered in enormous drops of perspiration. This family was really dysfunctional. Zabuza, the father's younger brother, behaved like a child himself, and Kyubi was the controlling father. The eldest brother, Kakashi, had not grown up since he was 15. The fraternal triplets who kept the family in check were the other 3. A strange group bound together by sigma bonds. Strong on their own, indestructible as a team. By the time this training was over, that is, if Kyubi decided they truly needed their bodies to survive and weren't a pile of mush. It was challenging enough just to learn the fundamentals. As you can see, Kyubi himself created Kitsune Ken, using his unique abilities to finish this. Unlike the Goken, which was mostly offensive, this taijutsu was both defensive and offensive in nature. Every move resembled a dance pose more than a martial art. A ninja's body had to be extremely nimble and flexible in order to be able to bend into any shape. This was the challenging part. In order to become proficient in the 12 fundamental poses, the 5 of them had been training hard for the last 4 hours. In reality, Kitsune Ken only employed the 12 fundamental poses. However, new forms were created when they were joined. The style was very challenging to use because there were an endless number of combinations that could be made from the 12 poses. They would probably need to train for a few years, or less if they used Kage Bunshin. Naruto. Do that again. When you are transitioning from rat to pig, remember, thrust the right leg out while rolling your weight to the left, not the other way round, idiot. Under his breath, Naruto complained, "Then why don't you do it, smartass?" He was drenched in sweat. These might have been the most bizarre positions anyone could have imagined. However, since Kyubi was the creator, strange things were inevitable. Haku and Shikamaru were experiencing similar issues. The partner stance, in which one person assumes the ox position and the other the snake position, was what they were practicing. To create an impenetrable form, the ox and the snake would work in tandem. Naturally, this resulted in a lot of awkward situations between Haku and Shikamaru because of their close proximity. Kyubi had nearly had enough of his pack. With the exception of Haku, they were all idiots. She was a keeper. He wasn't sure Shikamaru would be pleased, but the other foolish men could leave. The family became enraged at the remark, "All right. Stop, all of you. Just stop butchering the style that I worked so hard to create, you snot-nosed brats. For heaven's sake, they weren't Konohamaru. I'll work with each of you individually without using any clones. So Shikamaru. You're up first, boy. Everyone else just sit down." Shikamaru let out a frustrated groan. He had already overexerted himself and was exhausted. All of this was really annoying. But with the king of Makai brandishing a forged whip that was ready to strike at any moment if even a toe was out of line, he was essentially powerless. "Yes, my friend, it is troublesome." With much relief, the other 4 sank into the grass. They were wise enough not to mock Shikamaru's pathetic situation. Even the veterans like Zabuza and Kakashi were getting close to fatigue. Since Kyubi was aware that the 2 of them were more physically fit than the children, he had worked them almost twice as hard. At the moment, they would take it easy and worry about their broken bodies later. Shikamaru emerged in a whirl of leaves 15 minutes later. Behind him, Kyubi had a kindly expression on his face. Sweat trickled down his face and onto his now bare chest as he collapsed beside Haku. Simply put, it was too hot to wear a shirt. Haku gave the teenager a grateful evaluation. He was undoubtedly attractive, and his good looks would only get better over the next few years. She was still unsure of the exact classification for Shikamaru. Family? Friends? Both she and he were Naruto's cousins. Similarly to Kakashi and Naruto, he referred to Zabuza as Oji-san. She was pulsing with these new, undiscovered emotions. Cousins most definitely did not feel these things for one another. Everything would be defined by time. To see what would happen, she would simply wait. "Oi Naruto, you're next. Good luck, cousin, because you're sure as hell going to need it," Shikamaru gasped. Naruto swallowed. He was the main target of this style. The others could use it, of course, but only in a taijutsu sense. Fox Fist. was another name for Kitsune Ken's style of jutsu. Not exactly ninjutsu, but more akin to spells. Naruto would be able to utilize the spells that Kyuubi created and make the most of the style because he had Kyuubi sealed inside of him. Kyuubi said, "Let's go, Kit. We're burning daylight here." They disappeared after he caught Naruto by the collar of his undershirt. Haku, Shikamaru, Kakashi, and Zabuza could only hear the pathetic cries of a young child and the maniacal laughter of a deranged fox, man, or demon for the next 23 minutes. The torture their nephew or cousin was enduring made them all cringe. They also expressed gratitude to the benevolent Kami for putting Naruto in his place for once. In the meantime, Shino, Asuma, Ino, and Choji were all training nearby Naruto. Asuma had them practice standing on water or balancing on leaves in order to increase their reserves. Shino was lightning, Choji was earth, and Ino was water, according to the element test he had administered to them as well. In fact, it was pretty poetic. Lightning the assassin kinda silent but lethal. Just like Shino. It appears as a burst of electricity and light, as fast as a bullet and as accurate as a bullseye. Earth is a big, immovable rock. Choji was a living example of that, because he required a huge amount of protein to keep his metabolism going. He ate a lot of food. Choji was the binding agent, the one who would keep everyone together. Like Ino, water was steady, fluid, and smooth. She was so elegant that every time she sparred, it appeared as though she was dancing. She also had the same personality as water. It was quiet and serene at times, but violent and choppy when provoked. A better team could not have been asked for by Asuma. Like younger siblings, they were his to raise and care for. He had his assassin, his rock, and Ino, his tactical analyst. Because of her special bloodline, she would be the one to break their enemy. Suddenly, from somewhere outside the woods, the four of them heard an ear-piercing scream. Fearing that a wild animal might be on the loose, Choji inquired, "Did you hear that?" Ino answered, "Yeah, it sounded surprisingly like Naruto." Naruto. The poor bastard. I hope that if it is him, he's alright, Asuma replied. Shino observed. Yes, that was Naruto. What could have caused Naruto or anyone else to scream out like that? You really don't want to know, my dear Shino-chan. Training continued in the same manner for the next 3 days. They were torture, bloody torture, and Kyuubi was being forgiving of them in this way. They would all return home bloodied and bruised every night. They all knew it wasn't a training accident, but they just said that when someone asked them what had happened. All 5 of them had mastered the 12 fundamental positions by the end of their brief training session, which was made possible by a lot of cage bunchins. It was challenging to change your body shape from one shape to another. Zabuza and Kakashi had made the most progress, in part because they were accustomed to the hard work of training. The first form, the dance of the crane, was difficult for the cousins to master. Cranes were swift and elegant by nature. Controlling speed and making the body light was the first form. It was not as simple as it seemed. Zabuza and Kakashi had advanced to the rat's tail, the following form. The second form was about stealth, whereas the first was about speed. Even the worst circumstances could not prevent a rat from going undetected. This was the simplest of all for any skilled ninja. The hidden in plain sight strategy was employed by the form. Manipulation was the key. The opponent's mentality was actually hypnotized by the hand movements used in the form. This gave rise to the invisibility. Like reference. Since a genjutsu could be broken by simply forcing chakra out to distort the user's chakra, it was far more effective than any genjutsu. However, only hand gestures were employed here rather than chakra. Conversely, the other 3 genin had also been very busy. The 6 of them got together every night, if they weren't too exhausted, to share what they had discovered. Shikamaru, Naru, and Haku were training their bodies to be supple and light with Ino's assistance. They fought more like Choji or Shino, assessing the situation carefully before charging in like a boulder. By hurling kunai at absurd speeds and making them dodge, Shino and Choji were assisting them in becoming faster. It was a less intense version of Anko's sadistic playtime. Shino had approached Naruto to ask for assistance in increasing his chakra reserves. After voluntarily complying, Naruto began teaching Shino cage bunchins. Naruto had reasoned that cage bunchins was a method of dividing your chakra reserves equally. You could essentially be 2 places at once you were able to perform a cage bunchin. Any action taken by the clones would be remembered by the original. It accomplished 2 goals at once. It would also improve chakra control and reserves. Before falling to the ground, Shino had succeeded in removing 1 cage bunchin. He had made about 100 when Naruto had shown him. Naruto responded that the more chakra you have, the easier it is to create when he asked why it was so hard. Thus, Shino had started working on his cage bunshin with diligence. He had nearly doubled his chakra capacity just by creating one. He was so happy that he started making 2 clones this time right away. Inari had even participated in some training. Haku had given Inari some kunai to toss at a tree that had a bull's eye marked on it. He was making slow but steady progress, and he was thrilled. Every now and then, Haku, Shikamaru, and Naruto went into town to observe the impact of demolishing the base. Security appeared to be the same for the most part. When Naruto introduced Haku and Shikamaru, the orphans also developed a strong affection for them. The young child, Kenji, enjoyed sitting on Haku's lap, which Shikamaru found a little annoying and Naruto thought was hilarious. However, training was now finished. They had a nation to save and a battle to fight. Zabuza shouted over his shoulder, "Naruto, Shikamaru, Haku, leave cage bunshins here at the house in case something happens." "Hi, alright everyone. Gear up. Now listen, chances are, this fight won't last too long. It's 9 of us versus 1 ninja, that is if Gato hasn't hired more plus some 100 or so mercenaries. But be careful and never let your guard down. Is that clear?" asked Asuma. "Hi sensei," was the echoing exclamation. Tsunami sobbed as she said, "Be careful all of you. Come back here in one piece, please?" Tazuna waved to her and put a hand on her shoulder. "Don't worry Tsunami. With these ninja protecting me, nothing will go wrong. I assure you," Tazuna replied. Before embracing Zabuza and the rest of the ninja, Inari gave him a hug. "Naruto ni, Chan, you gave me the hope that everything is going to be alright. Come home safely to us all." He put his hand on Inari's hair and gave it a gentle ruffle, saying, "Don't worry Inari. We won't get hurt, that I promise of you." Kakashi replied, "Okay. Let's go. Keep your senses alert folks. You never know what might happen," Asuma concluded. The 2 individuals who were still standing at the house, along with 10 cage bunshin, caught the attention of the 9 ninja and 1 civilian. They waved one last time and were off. When they were out of sight, Inari said, "They'll be okay, right mama?" "Of course they will darling, of course they will." Tazuna and the other 9 ninjas were moving at a civilian pace. Not just Tazuna, but all of them benefited from this. It would allow them to examine the situation closely and pay attention to even the smallest details. Normally, the walk to the bridge would take 30 minutes, but with all the rules they had to follow, it took almost an hour. When the bridge was finished, it would undoubtedly be magnificent. Tazuna was incredibly talented. However, based on their previous observations, it appeared that his men were abandoning him in droves, especially in the last few days. They were growing nervous. There was only so much the mercenaries could do, and they were becoming increasingly unruly. They would sacrifice the highest paying job in the village to keep their families safe. Today, however, everything would be different. Finally they made their way into the bridge area. Asuma had a number of his clones surveying the terrain in front of and behind him. Pakun was conducting a brief reconnaissance of the areas where their scent was detected with the other nin dogs. Tazuna cast a pitying glance at his deserted bridge. Not a single employee had arrived for work. Really, it was depressing. His feelings had to be shared by the others. Tazuna muttered, "Well, welcome to my bridge." There was silence. It was 8:32 in the morning, as was to be expected. It was too quiet, though. Eerily silent. Shinobi remained silent. Everyone was alert. Rokusho Aoi was a man not to be taken lightly. Since Kakashi and Asuma had previously served as fellow Konoha nin, he would undoubtedly come for them. "Guys, I've got something. A small platoon of roughly 33 men is approaching. They haven't had contact with any of my clones yet. Stand guard. Shino, Haku, guard Tazuna. Naruto, frontal assault along with Kakashi. Ino, Shikamaru, Choji, stop anyone who comes this way. Background now." Asuma gave the order. "Myself and Zabuza will assist Naruto and Kakashi." "Hi." They quickly took their places. The kids' veins throbbed with adrenaline. It would be an opportunity to evaluate their training abilities. Then, in 3 regiments of 11, they arrived. Rokusho Aoi led 33 men with Raijin in hand. When Naruto saw the traitor holding his great-uncle's sword, he snarled. To stop his cousin from acting hastily, Kakashi placed a restraining hand on his shoulder. Naruto became a little more relaxed. Aoi regarded his opponents with contempt. Sarutobi Asuma, the son of the Hokage himself, and Hitaki Kakashi, the notorious copy nin. Then came Momochi Zabuza and his scumbag of a partner. They had changed, didn't they? However, how did they know that Aoi and his gang would launch an attack at this time? Zabuza was told that the attack would take place in 5 days. Did they really believe that Tazuna, a liability that 9 ninja had to protect, could prevail? Not under his watch, anyway. Then he saw what he believed to be an Akamichi, an Aburame, a Nara, and 2 Yamanakas. The Aburame and the bitch were protecting the bridge builder. Well well well. What do we have here? Nani Zabuza. Kun, you were alive and never told us, eh? And now you're working for the other side. HN. How much are they paying you? I'm sure we had a more enticing offer for you. I chided. Zabuza snarled. He's just trying to get you angry, so don't attack him just yet. I'm sure you did too, Rokusho. But what can I say, this side just seems so much more comforting. If you know what's best for you, go home. You can't win against us, no matter how many mercenaries you bring. Don't fuck with me, traitor. I'm not the only shinobi that Gato hired. They aren't as skilled as I am, but they are more than enough to take care of the pathetic genin that you have with you, Aoi responded. With each passing second, Naruto's rage grew stronger. That bastard was acting as though he owned the sword that belonged to his ancestor. Your skill is nothing to praise, Rokusho. The only reason why you are labeled as an S-rank noob nin in the bingo book is because you have that sword in your hands. How dare you desecrate Konoha history? Aoi laughed. You lousy meddling Yamanaka. Clearly the shinobi title is all a game to you. It's either kill or be killed. This is reality, boy. I can do whatever the hell I want, even if it means leaving my village to attain my goals. With disgust, Naruto looked at the man. First of all, I'm a Nara, not a Yamanaka. Secondly, you pledged an oath to Konoha. That oath cannot be broken. Leaving your village is the highest of all treason, and the punishment is death. A blonde Nara, eh? Well, there's a first for everything, I suppose, and I couldn't give a damn about the hidden leaf. They haven't given me a goddamn thing. For all I care, the second coming of the Kyuubi could happen and destroy Konoha, and I won't bat an eyelash. This asshole is going to be fucking murdered. Let me go, Naruto. Kyuubi let out a mental scream. I always learned the virtue of patience from you, so just give it some time. HN. Whatever you want to do, don't make a bloody mess of him, I'll assist. Oh, I will, don't worry, Asuma said, looking at Naruto, who smiled back at him wryly. Well, that's not going to happen anytime soon, so the leaf won't be destroyed. Not yet at least. Do you know how many nations are itching to destroy the leaf? Iwa is one, for obvious reasons, and Kumo seems neutral, but you never know. I heard about this new one called Otto, it seems to really hate you guys. Aoi grinned. Mizuki. Teme went to that one and emerged from all of her lunacy. Otto. Orochimaru. Naruto pondered. Kakashi gave Aoi a startled look. Why the hell are you telling us that? Aoi grinned. Ha. Well, consider it a present. You'll die with the knowledge of knowing why your village is going to be demolished. He was laughed at by the others. You have the gall to think that you and some weak shinobi can kill us. Don't fuck with this man. Choji replied. This fool was also starting to annoy him. We'll see about that, Akamichi, we'll see, but enough talking. It's time to kill. Aoi gestured quickly, and about 30 shinobi with Iwa headbands showed up. Kill them now, yelled Aoi, then the battle started. Haku and Shino positioned themselves defensively around Tazuna, while the others dispersed to support Naruto and Kakashi and assist in halting anyone attempting to approach Tazuna. Naruto and Kakashi prepared for the frontal attack. Kakashi raised his headband to show the elemental nations why they feared him so much, because they were fighting the Sharingan no Kakashi. Some of his opponents recoiled as the Sharingan spun wildly. Zabuza prepared to wield Kabikari Hucho by hefting it onto his shoulder. Asuma pulled out his wind chakra, fused trench knives which could cut through anything. In a flurry, the two sides rushed at one another. As the shinobi killed mercilessly, leaving no survivors, blood and crimson liquid spattered on their clothes. The only weapons the mercenaries carried were knives and axes. They were attempting to penetrate the shinobi forces by hacking. Ino struck 2 of the shinobi's deadly pressure points with a shuriken as it approached. Silently, he collapsed to the ground. 2 of his friends, furious, banded together to attack the unfortunate girl. Ino, however, was not a poor girl. Oh no, the head of the Yamanaka clan had a daughter named Yamanaka Ino. Only a select few were aware that she was the academy's badass girl. Shikamaru. Bind them now. Shikaku, Inoichi, and Shuza had been on the same team before for a reason. Shuza would crush them all, Inoichi would perplex, and Shikaku would restrain. An enemy mercenary had just been dispatched by Shikamaru. He put his hands in the rat seal as soon as he realized what Ino was asking. Kage Kyubi Shibari no Jutsu, Shadow Neck Bind approach, the men stood motionless. One man choked, "My neck. Can't breathe." Ino quickly thanked Shikamaru before shoving kunai into their heads. She exhaled sharply. She wasn't particularly worn out, it's just mentally exhausting to take your first kill or kills. Ino said, "Thanks Shika. It helped a lot." "No problem Ino. Oh, and by the way, it's best if you let it out after the fights. Naruto and I like to go into the forest of death and kill some of the giant spiders. It gets better over time, trust me." Ino gave her surrogate brother a smile. She continued attacking the others after saying, "Arigato." They all seemed to love her so much that they wanted to kill her. 5 Iwa ninjas were approaching, and Shino and Haku had to protect a scared Tazuna. Shino, panting as he repelled attacks, said, "Haku-san, I think now would be a great time to use your bloodline." In response, Haku said, "I couldn't agree with you more Shino-san." She inhaled deeply, gathering the wind and water needed for the jutsu. According to Demon Ice Crystal Mirrors, Ikuzo, Makio Hyosho. Suddenly, there were mirrors all around the 5 ninjas. One of the Iwa shinobi said to his comrade, "Oi, try using a Kaiden jutsu or something. It's just ice, it'll melt." Fire release. Great fireball technique. Yash. Kaiden. Gokakyu no jutsu. The fire instantly went out in the mirrors. The jutsu's inventor exclaimed, "Nani? That should have worked perfectly, then why?" A voice that was not physically present said, "It's impossible to break my mirrors." To no avail, the Iwa nin spun around in an attempt to locate the owner. Rather, a torrent of senbons struck them. One of the Iwa nin had 7 senbons sticking out of him. "What the hell? Did you see that? Hang on, there she is." "Where?" "There, in that mirror." Doden. Doryuden. Earth release. Earth dragon projectile. The mirrors were unharmed as the earth dragon bounced off of them. What kind of jutsu is this? It's impossible to pierce. They were suddenly attacked by another round of senbons. The disembodied voice repeated, "Did you idiots not listen to me? My jutsu is impossible to beat. Why waste your time?" The girl moved from one mirror to another, and this time the Iwa shinobi saw it. She was too quick for them to pierce her with their kunai. "Kuso. What should we do Jishin?" Jishin, the man, quickly dodged more senbons. "I'm not sure Hanataro. There has to be some weakness here we can exploit, right? We just have to dodge those damned senbons some more. Even if you're hurt now, don't worry, she's going to run out of senbon pretty soon." Haku let out a sigh. Why didn't they realize there was no escape? This had to stop. Shino was alone, protecting Tazuna. "Do you really think that I intend for myself to run out of senbon? I think not. Take this. Cage senbon no jutsu." As thousands of senbon rushed in their direction, the men turned pale. They were unable to flee in time. They were too numerous to avoid. The same satisfied expression that Zabuza had when he killed someone he didn't particularly like was on Haku's face. Senbons stuck out of the men's bodies as they fell to the ground. Each one had pierced a vital tenketsus. They had passed away. After swiftly removing the mirrors, she discovered Shino standing there, battered and bloodied, with Choji at his side, guarding Tazuna. Haku yelled, "Shino-san," and dispatched another shinobi who had committed an offense. Shino was pale and heavily bleeding from a wound on the side of his leg. "I'm fine, Haku-san, really. These are just scratches." However, Naruto's and the boy's eyes reflected a sharp amount of resolve. Haku gave him a grimace but ignored him. She glanced at Choji, and they both launched another assault. On both sides of the bridge, shouts of "Kage Nui" were heard simultaneously. At the moment, Naruto and Kakashi were fending off attacks from roughly 7 more mercenaries and 10 Iwa shinobi. The mercenaries could still harm the cousins even if they were unable to use jutsus. While Zabuza, Kakashi, and Asuma eliminated the approaching mercenaries and shinobi, Naruto and Shikamaru were tasked with binding them. There is no way this situation could get worse. Because Aoi would constantly call platoons in, more shinobi would appear after each one they eliminated. It was extremely annoying. Even the older shinobi were feeling the pinch. Haku was caught off guard, and she had cuts along her back and multiple tears in her kimono. Ino appeared to be experiencing chakra depletion and had similar injuries. One of the Iwa nin was especially vicious, and Choji and Shino suffered nasty gashes on their arms and legs. Though they were physically healthier than the others, Shikamaru and Naruto were mentally worn out. They had escaped with only minor bruises, avoiding the worst of the damage. However, they had also taken the greatest number of lives. The occasion was not particularly joyous. Naruto cried out, "Kaka! Ni!" as more shinobi entered. Kakashi reassured Naruto, who was beginning to feel anxious himself. I know, Naruto. Don't worry though. I haven't used Raikiri yet and you haven't used Rasengan. We'll be fine. One of the new Iwa ninja yelled. Hey, it's them. It's those two. The Densetsu K's Cage no Kyodai. They have a bounty of 5 million ryo. About 15 new shinobi were present. They all turned to face Shikamaru and Naruto. The fact surprised Aoi himself. It had been a while since he checked his bingo book. So the bingo book did contain those Nara brats. It appears, however, that Konoha was not so worthless after all. Ah, Kuso. I can't take this anymore. Ninpo. Kirigakure no Jutsu. Zabuza had killed the first 50 or so Iwa nin, and his patience had run out. The cockroaches continued to return. The offending shinobi was blinded by the dense mist that enveloped the area. With his Sharingan out, Kakashi caught a glimpse of Zabuza leaping into the chasm. Yelling and howling could be heard throughout the enemy's position. What was that? Ino exclaimed. That is my father's prized attack. It covers the area in a thick fog so no one but him can see what's going on. He is, after all, the master at silent killing, and this is the prelude to that, Haku said with a small grin on her face. Shino shuddered slightly. All of this was being watched with grim fascination by Naruto, who was both powerful and dangerous. So this is a shinobi's life. How do they maintain their sanity? The fog lifted a few seconds later. The shinobi were all dead. Aoi looked on with disdain. He hadn't even been Zabuza's target. Was he really that useless? Panting, Zabuza said, There. You're welcome, by the way. Naruto exclaimed, Holy shit, man. That was bloody awesome. Instead, his uncle had just defeated 15 shinobi. It was awful. However, all Uzumakis are bad assholes. Have faith. Zabuza pointed to something that was approaching them and said, Thanks, Naruto, but we got more trouble coming. Haku, Choji, Shino, and Ino were no longer able to fight at this point. They were bloody, exhausted, and chakra depleted. That combination did not work well. At all costs, they had to keep Tazuna safe. This was unbelievable to Aoi. 6 of those 9 ninja were younger than 13, and they had defeated at least 100 shinobi in addition to about 60 mercenaries. Incredibly so, he had only been watching what his forces could accomplish up until this point. He had been ordered by Gato to refrain from attacking unless absolutely necessary. The last of his resources were the people who were coming to help him. Gato approached Iwa with the idea of killing Zabuza, and Iwa decided to lend out 125 of their shinobi forces. Gato knew a lot about shinobi affairs, specifically shinobi politics. He only needed to say that if he killed the bridge builder, Konoha and Kiri would no longer be able to form any kind of alliance, and the Tsuchikage was sold. About 200 feet away from the others, Aoi halted the shinobi force. How many? An Iwa nin hurriedly answered, 23, sir. An impatient Aoi asked, Any more coming? No, we are the last batch. Speaking of which, where are the others? Aoi responded curtly, Dead. The shinobi from Iwa trembled. How could the 9 shinobi in front of them have killed 122 of their allies? They were filthy, soiled, and exhausted. Would they succeed? Would they prevail? And at a price? Aoi could see they were nervous. Listen to me. Do you see those 2 boys, one with the blonde hair and the brunette next to him? Their names are Nara Naruto and Nara Shikamaru. Also known as the Densetsu K's Cage no Kyodai. They were the ones who killed Iwa shinobi 4 years ago. Are you going to let them slander the name of Iwa anymore? Or are you going to kill the fiends who led to your comrade's demise? The Iwa were now agitated by this. They glanced at the 2 weary boys who were observing them suspiciously. Both the brats and the annoying bridge builder would perish. There are no exceptions. Zabuza and Haku were among the Konoha who watched the assembled crowd with trepidation. Along with a fully functional Rokusho Aoi, there were 23 new shinobi. Their chances were not looking good. Although Naruto still had summons and the Kyuubi as tricks, those would use a lot of chakra. His remaining chakra was slightly over half. Zabuza, Kakashi, and Shikamaru had less than that. Kakashi would only be able to use 20% of his chakra if he used his Raikiri at this moment. Additionally, since his Sharingan was out, his chakra was being consumed even more quickly. Naruto was most likely the best option at the moment to take on Aoi directly. Shikamaru glanced back at Haku out of the corner of his eye. She was panting heavily and covered in perspiration. Shino appeared to be resting, with one hand on her knee and the other gripping her. He glanced at everyone who was with her. They were all in roughly the same condition, with the exception of Tazuna. It's going to be you who fights now, Naruto. I'll assist you, but please put an end to this as soon as possible for both of us. Would you kindly re-establish the mental link, Q-ni? Naruto pondered. Okay, Kit, give me a moment. Arigato. Indeed, a short while later, Naruto sensed the rippling strands of his subconscious extending into the thoughts of his blood relatives. When Haku, Zabuza, Kakashi, and Shikamaru felt Naruto's abyss of a mind touch their own, they tensed. Listen, it's okay if you can hear me. Given that Haku is the worst off, I know you are all worn out. I am confident that we can eliminate the Iwa shinobi. You must rest, Haku, along with Shino, Ino, and Shoji. There is no doubt about that. Everything will be handled by the rest of us. Ultimately, Zabuza. Oji will kill Gato if and when he shows up, and I will battle Aoi and reclaim Raijin. All of their minds were filled with Naruto's thoughts. They exchanged affirming glances about his plan. Naruto will do. However, please exercise caution and refrain from acting recklessly for Kami's sake. Kakashi pondered. To Aniki, I love you. Naruto laughed. Don't you think it's time for us to put an end to this, Naruto? Into the mental link, Zabuza said. Initially taken aback, he then recalled their initial meeting. It was really interesting. On the battlefield, Naruto was undoubtedly the most unexpected ninja. You haven't seen anything yet, Zabuza. Oji. San, I concur. Aoi and I will face off after we eliminate the shinobi. This mission isn't exactly about taking on an S-rank nin, but I'll do it. Believe me. I need Shikamaru and you to keep Tazuna safe because the mercenaries might return. Okay, don't worry, child. Zabuza stated. Naru, don't worry, I've got this. Shikamaru remembered him. Yash. Simply sign it to Asuma. Ni now that everyone is aware of the plan. After saying that, Naruto cut the connection. Kakashi told Asuma about the plan. He concurred. If things got ugly during the fight with Aoi, Asuma would be there to support Naruto. They would now need to find out what the other side was up to. At the same time, Tsunami and Inari were having a rather quiet lunch at Tazuna's house with the 10 clones that Naruto, Haku, and Shikamaru had left behind. Suddenly, they could hear sounds from outside. Tsunami.san, stay here with Inari and get on the floor. I'll cover you with a genjutsu, Haku said to the woman. Both Inari and Tsunami were terrified, but they had faith in the young ninja. Bibun. Takina Inpei no Jutsu. Partial concealment technique. The two appeared to be in a spotless environment as the air around them shimmered. To greet the intruders, one Naruto, one Shikamaru, and one Haku went out. It was discovered that the intruders were 2 mercenaries. The children were seen leaving the house by the mercenaries. They were unaware that these were the same kids who had killed 5 of their fellows and destroyed their base. One of them said, Oi, do you know if that bridge builder lives here? Bridge builder? No, I'm sorry. We live here alone with our uncle Takashima, but he's gone out to the market at the moment. We just moved here and don't really know anyone at the moment. Shikamaru lied with an expression of laziness. Normal Nara. For a minute, the 2 fools stared at each other. One pulled out a picture and said, well, fine. But this is what the bridge builder looks like. If you see him, tell him that we have some complaints with his bridge. He knows where to find us. Yes, sir. We understand. Thanks. Goodbye, Haku replied. To which the other mercenary replied, have a nice day. When they heard a voice, they turned around. Naruto's voice reverberated throughout the room. You might not be ninja, but a fighter should always learn to look underneath the underneath. Futon. Daitapa. The tearing wind tore through them like butter before they could even turn around and pull out their swords. Similar to Asuma's trench knives. Futon. Daitapa is a C-rank wind jutsu, but because of Naruto's unnatural control over the wind, it is amplified to the point where it can cut through anything. The Naruto clone declared resolutely, it's over. TCH. Troublesome, but no it's not. More will come, perhaps not here, but they will. This situation is getting out of hand. All of our bosses are fighting, and from what I learned when one of boss's cage buncheons was dispelled, Haku's boss is seriously injured. All of our comrades are injured for that matter. We are only reinforced clones. If we dispel ourselves right now, boss and the others will get more chakra, but then we leave Tsunami and Inari unprotected. We are in a pinch. The clone of Shikamaru replied with a father expression. Clone Haku let out a sigh. What do you propose we do? Listen, without a doubt Naruto will fight that Aoi guy. Since he's most likely the leader of whatever forces attacked our bosses and the others, he'll fight the last. Do you see where my reasoning is going? Replied Clone Shikamaru. Clone Naruto came to the conclusion, I understand. Aoi will fight my boss when all of his troops are close to gone, right? Exactly. So what we have to do is gather the townspeople. Chances are Gato will come at this time. From what we've gathered, some of the townsfolk are experienced fighters. Having them on our side wouldn't hurt. Clone Shikamaru replied. Clone Haku remarked, great. Then, shouldn't we start right away? We should. Ikuzo. So, ignoring the bodies of the people Naruto had killed, the three of them returned inside the house. Tsunami had a lot of work to do in Inari. Their plan needed to be flawless in order to save Nami no Kuni. The bridge. Lines of enemy. Do you understand why we must win? Iwa always comes out on top. The blonde even looks like that bastard. The Ondaime Hokage. Killing him will mean that we are one step closer to destroying Konoha. So fight. Fight for Iwa. Fight for pride, and most of all, fight for yourself. Am I clear? Aoi continued. Hi. Well then, what are you waiting for? Let's go. The shinobi charged, all intent on killing, and war cries could be heard. Our side of the bridge, unless you're partial to the Iwa nins. Here they come. Naruto, Kakashi, Shikamaru, Zabuza.san. Hold them off. I'm going to see the kids. Naruto, I'll come once Aoi starts fighting, Asuma was crying. Naruto yelled. Understood Asuma. Above the roar of the approaching shinobi. Use my strength too, Naruto. It will move much more quickly. Kyuubi also shared his thoughts. It will require a lot of chakra, but I would. It will be simpler and your allies won't suffer if you call me. I don't know. Go for it, dude. Okay, alright. Oi Mina. There's been a change in plan. Stand back now, Naruto yelled. Kakashi went. Naruto. What the hell? Asuma, Kakashi, Shikamaru, and Zabuza were abruptly pushed back by a gust of wind. Naruto said, I'm sorry, guys, but this is the fastest way, with regret. Shikamaru stopped the older ninja from stopping him. Haku, the other genin, and Tazuna had joined them by this point. Ino questioned frantically, what's going on? What is Naruto doing? Naruto plans to summon him and finish this quickly. He's doing us all a favor, so recuperate for now. Shikamaru clarified. Everyone except Shino grasped it right away. Wrong man. But he'll be wasting his own chakra, exclaimed Zabuza. He was furious. Shikamaru firmly stated, Naruto has the most chakra of all of us. He'll get by. Naruto had to be trusted. Kakashi sighed and remarked, that idiot. I swear, he's so rash sometimes. Naruto's cry, Yosh, today let me show my flames of youth to you Iwa shinobi. Caused the fighters to halt and caused all of the Konoha shinobi to perspire. What did you do to him, made guy? However, Naruto intended to divert the approaching shinobi in order to carry out the summoning. He performed the hand seals quickly while biting his thumb. Kachiyose no Jutsu. Kyuubi no Kitsune. All of the shinobi were confused as a plume of smoke engulfed the area. It reminded me a lot of Kirigakure no Jutsu by Zabuza. An Iwa nin exclaimed, W. What the hell is that? Aoi's face was slightly etched with fear as he stood there. Kyuubi no Kitsune, did the Gaki just say that? What on earth was happening? Who was this child? A figure so flawless that he could only be called beautiful rose out of the smoke. 9 flawless locks of his flowing red hair swirled around him. The black and red of his cloak contrasted with his tanned skin. He felt the Makai kanji slide down his spine. Kyuubi positioned himself and said, Yo Naruto. I'll take care of these small fries. You take the bastard with the sword. Around him, a red, evil chakra developed. Everyone in the vicinity sensed the man's utterly malevolent aura. The Iwa ninjas flinched in terror. Naruto said to the entity occupying his body, okay, Q.ni. Just please, don't make that much of a mess. Kyuubi simply gave the boy a sly smile. Ha! Kitsune. Bye. The approaching shinobi was encased in a red ball of something. The king of hell was too strong for the poor bastards. After all, aside from Kami, he was the most powerful creature on the planet. Or so she said. What sister wouldn't want to be stronger than her dumb twin brother, after all? Other than Naruto, no one could be described as shocked. Maybe the words were awe, fear, and reverence. Yar, such small flies, not even fitting to be on my menu. Shino exclaimed, what the hell did Naruto summon? You pretty much answered it right there, Shino. He summoned the king of hell. Kakashi responded, why hadn't he done this earlier, tch? Yes, because Kakashi believed Naruto's chakra would be excessively depleted. That was obviously not the case, though. But, how? Muttered Shino. How could a human being call forth that? That, my friend, is something Naruto will tell you himself. It's not our place to do so, Choji responded. Oh, you idiots in the background. Why the hell didn't you use the stances I taught you? You would have eliminated them with one blow. They were drenched in sweat. Shikamaru said, it's quite hard to do so when you're under pressure, ya know. Asuma questioned incredulously, so that was who you learned a family style from? The fucking king of hell taught you guys? As Kyuubi approached the others, Kakashi asked apathetically, is that a problem? The man, beast, demon, and fox made Asuma and his genin very nervous. He had only appeared to Choji and Ino in his fox form, where he appeared innocuous. Now, though, it truly helped them put things in perspective. This being was inside Naruto. Kyuubi sat down beside Kakashi and said, yo. He looked up at the clouds in the sky. Yes, it was quite soothing to do that. The Nara clan's laziness makes sense. You wouldn't get bored doing this all day. Unfortunately, some people simply wouldn't appreciate the pleasures of staring at clouds. Shikamaru questioned him, yo yourself. Why aren't you helping Naruto out? Shikamaru looked like he had two heads as Asuma and his genin gazed at him. What punishment would the king of hell inflict on Shikamaru for speaking to him in such a manner? Even though Ino, Asuma, and Choji were aware of Kyuubi's true identity, witnessing him in action was incredibly terrifying. He was cute and adorable in his fox form. His actual form was a different matter entirely. To their astonishment, however, Kyuubi laughed. The king of hell did indeed laugh. In all honesty, though, his laugh wasn't fun. It was more like Orochimaru's. Coo-coo-coos than anything else. The giggle was more malevolent. However, enough of the laughter. They don't really matter, or do they? Don't worry. Naruto will be fine, plus he has you all to back him up if the need arises. If you do interfere without his help though, he'll probably kill you. Don't interfere in his battle, no matter how much he gets his ass kicked, if that's the case that is. But he's Naruto. Konoha's #1 most unpredictable ninja. If I taught him anything, it's to improvise when all else fails. Kyuubi assured them with assurance. Everybody looked at Naruto. It appeared as though he and Aoi were looking down at one another. The battle had not yet started, but it would. Kyuubi had to be asked this question by Ino. Anyo, exactly how much have you taught Naruto? Kyuubi turned to look at her. She flinched a little. The fox who huddled in her lap was not this one. This creature was responsible for Konoha's destruction. Not much really. His other teachers have been more than enough till now. I taught him the basics of fighting. His real training from me begins now. He's 12, and ready to finally learn from me. But enough talking. The fight's about to begin. Let's sit back and relax for now. Kyuubi replied. Yes, Naruto and Aoi had not yet started fighting. Naruto was aware that Aoi would initiate contact. His posture implied that. The first thing Aoi wanted to clear up was the creature the boy had called upon to massacre his army. It would be an understatement of the year to say that Aoi was furious. He had everything planned out, from start to finish. The boy simply must go and ruin it after that. He had never had such a strong desire to murder someone. Aoi started, Oi Gaki. Naruto snarled in frustration. No one but Jiraiya could call him, Gaki, and get away with it. Nani? How is it that you could summon the Kyuubi no Kitsune? That is if I heard you correctly, Aoi responded. Everyone tensed at this. Aoi had therefore heard Naruto. It wasn't good. No, it was more important than ever to kill Aoi. No matter the cost, Konoha's trump card secret could not be revealed. Shino gazed at the object before him. Kitsune no Kyuubi. No, it isn't possible, could it? Naruto shot back. What's it to you? He just wanted to fight, not discuss some rather intimate details. He was genuinely intrigued. Ah, nothing really, just a curious. I apologize, but I'm not in the mood to discuss that. Let's just say that he and I have some sort of agreement. Naruto was relieved that Aoi hadn't discovered that he was the Kyuubi's vessel, but he had to doubt the man's intelligence because only the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki would be able to call him, not including Madara, of course. Ka. So, I suppose there's no use in talking anymore. Aoi prepared Raijin in a strange shape. After drawing a scroll from a compartment in his pants and smearing some of his blood on it, Naruto said, that's the most sensible thing you've said today. A katana, made by Uzumaki Kushina's best blacksmith in Uzu no Kuni, emerged, and Naruto used it as a token of respect for his mother. Returning to the audience, does the boy possess a sword? Zabuza inquired, his interest in Naruto deepening. Yes, and your sister, his mother, also used the same one. Kakashi responded, Uzumaki Kushina was one of our best swordsmen, and Naruto has inherited her skill. It appears to be swordsmanship in the blood, don't you think? Haku, you're next, Zabuza remarked. Looking at her father with dissatisfaction, Haku said, let's focus on his fight, Dad. And the conversation was essentially over. Naruto and Aoi. Jutsu no Kage Bunshin. 3 clones appeared with Naruto's signature move. You all know what to do. Come on, Naruto's 4 eyes, which were taking advantage of every blind spot that Aoi had, were what made this style so difficult to break. Any Konoha-nin who knew Gekko Hayate would be familiar with this style. The clones and Naruto moved in unison, and the 3 Kage Bunshin provided distraction. This style was truly brilliant. He knew this Kenjutsu. Mikazuki no Mai. Dance of the Crescent Moon. The brat had studied with Gekko Hayate. Aoi tried to defend himself against the clones, but he was unable to do so because the clones gave him no opening. Aoi had to draw Raijin out because he kept getting cut by Naruto and his clones. What is this, then? A 12-year-old is beating you up. Naruto taunted, that Raijin doesn't really do anything to your power, you know. Aoi was catching up to him, his movements were getting faster, and he was parrying more of Naruto's attacks while his clones continued to attack. Oh boy, you're mistaken there. After all, the Raijin is the sword of the Thunder God for a reason, so it does give me a huge power boost. They saw that it was lightning, not light, as the sword in his hand glowed a magnificent golden, filling the area with a halo of light. I can control the element of lightning with this sword. The Nidaime Hokage was apparently useful for something. Because he didn't even have Kyuubi in him at the moment. His healing abilities were slower without that direct link of Kyuubi's chakra. Aoi swung the sword and lightning bolts tore apart the Naruto clones. Aoi ran forward before Naruto could react, slicing his arm open. He sealed his mother's sword back into his scroll and set his Nara mind to work. Naruto cursed. He forgot all about the Raijin's abilities. Oh no, Mikazuki no Mai was out of the question at that point. He thought that he could demonstrate some sword skills to his uncle, but that would have to wait. Hold on, Naruto had the advantage here, and he was going to use it to its fullest. Raijin was lightning, and Naruto had wind chakra. Naruto grinned. Lightning was weak against wind, and it seemed that Aoi had forgotten this. Shikamaru grinned as well, 200 feet behind him, saying, Naruto's gonna win this. The others, excluding Kyuubi and Kakashi, stared at him as if he were insane. Lightning versus wind. Who prevails? Was his reaction to their expressions. Then the others realized that Naruto was going to win. Lightning is defeated by wind. Jutsu no Kage Bunshin. Naruto sobbed once more. Aoi laughed. Don't you see it's useless to make those clones? Well, it's not, really. Come on, Alpha, Beta, Gamma, now, a wind is forming. Hello. The clones surrounded the real Naruto in a triangle and let out a cry. Alpha, 1 for Futon. Beta, 2 Futons. Gamma, 3 Futon. With the appropriate hand seals, the 3 clones prepared themselves. Kase no Senbon, Futon. Alpha screamed. Aoi attempted to deflect a wave of wind senbons with his crackling lightning blade, but to his surprise, the blade was unable to stop the attacks. What the devil? Aoi sobbed as the wind senbons repeatedly cut him. Kase no Yeba, Futon. When Alpha used a rather mediocre C-ranked jutsu to divert Aoi's attention from Beta's attack, the clone's arm changed into a sword of wind and charged at Aoi, whose midriff now had a massive gash that gushed blood. Beta yelled. Kuso. Grab this. Kaden. Karyuden. Alpha was wiped out by a fire. Breathing dragon. Fire was powerful against wind, of course. Nevertheless, Naruto's clones had severely beaten Aoi. The real Naruto shouted from the middle of his now 2. Clone protective unit, Mada Mada. Gamma, go now. Osu. Futon. Kamikaze. The wind twisted into tiny whirlpools, but Aoi was able to avoid all but one of them. His entire body was covered in cuts after being knocked flat on his back. Naruto's destructive winds had now deprived Raijin of all its lightning. Eyes wide, Shoji questioned, how the hell did Naruto dispatch an S-ranked nin? With a sigh, Shikamaru turned to face the sky. To tell you the truth, what Naruto said in the beginning of this fight is true. Without Raijin, Aoi is nothing. At most he would be a B-ranked missing nin. The reason that we thought he would be dangerous is because he would have so many mercenaries to back him up, and we were right. So in reality, I could have done the same too, but Naruto just has more chakra. Ino questioned in wonder, just what exactly are you two? Before Shikamaru could speak, Kyuubi responded. The blonde and brunette idiots are my subordinates who never seem to take my advice. And the silver-haired one, He's the leader of the idiots. For example, if they had actually used anything that I spent 3 days teaching them, this fight never would have happened. Why? Because my style of fighting is foolproof. Not even that green spandex freak could beat my style. But no, they don't use it, and because of that they're all sitting here wallowing in sorrow because they have no more chakra left. Well, boo.who. This is due to the fact that you don't utilize the tools that you are provided with, idiots. The sheer amount of annoyance Kyuubi was releasing had everyone perspiring. Kyuubi gave them a dagger. Like glare as Shikamaru and Kakashi drew closer. Ah, forget it. Well, it seems Naruto is going to end this anyway. Naruto approached Aoi, who was writhing on the ground in agony, and knelt beside him. If you hadn't left Konoha, you wouldn't really be in this predicament now, would you? Naruto growled at the man. The face above him caught Aoi's attention. Both of his cheeks had those 3 lines. Aoi recalled him now. It makes sense that he was able to call forth the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Aoi's speech was halting and fragmented as she said, You are. The verses. Vessel to the K. Y. U. Ubi. U. Su. Ma. Kinar. Ut. Oh. To be honest, it was incredible that he had endured so much after confronting Winjutsus. Indeed I am, sir. But my name is Naruto, not Uzumaki. But really, it took you that long to figure out that I was the Kyuubi vessel? Honestly, am I really that easy to forget? Granted, you did leave when I was probably 6 months old. Oh, and by the way, I would really appreciate if you gave me my great uncle's sword back. It's kind of a family heirloom, and Tsunade.ba-chan would probably be pissed if I didn't take it away from a traitor when I got the chance. Aoi's gaze expanded. Was the Neodaime Hokage related to him? That was not feasible. Other than the fact that he was to be given the last name Uzumaki, they were not given any information about the demon container. He simply could not have been related to any of the Sanins or Hokage. Naruto lifted Raijin from the dying man's grasp and grinned at his stunned expression. He turned away from Aoi without saying anything and made his way back to his family and friends. He winced as he examined their battered and bloody bodies. The wound they had received was far worse than his own. Kakashi deadpanned, Naruto, Aoi's not dead, you know. Sheepishly, Naruto scratched the back of his head. Ah, Gomen, Gamma, come. Immediately his clone was at his side. Boss, go stand by Rokusho's side. Hi. The clone appeared close to the traitor's head after disappearing for a few seconds. Shikamaru questioned his cousin. Oi Naruto, are you really going to use that? Why, what's wrong? I haven't used it for a while and he'll be gone instantly, replied Naruto. Shikamaru sighed and said, fine, just do what you want. The Tora, tiger, seal was inserted into Naruto's hands. Gamma erupted, but he did so elegantly. Yes, thanks for your permission, mother. Bunshin Daibafuku. He exclaimed. Sakura petals swung around Aoi in a fierce dance. His skin was deeply marked by each petal. They resembled little razors. In a matter of seconds, Aoi was dead. There was no way he could get much more hurt. Those who had not witnessed his initial explosion of Cage Bunshin technique gaped in disbelief. It was both beautiful and lethal. Fantastic. TCH, how troublesome, Naruto. I don't understand why you couldn't have made those clones before and explode them. Shimakaru grumbled. Naruto fell to one knee, panting, and uttered the words, because that particular clone takes 5 times more chakra than a regular exploding clone. This coupled with all of the fighting we've done today, I'm almost done. Tazuna gazed at the bridge infested with his body. There was blood all over. He was safe, though. The ninjas had performed their duties admirably. Perhaps a bit too well. Kyuubi complained. In order to restore Naruto's healing abilities, he ought to return to the seal. He had to destroy Naruto's chakra coils in order to increase his chakra. Kid, come here. This was something Naruto had already expected from Kyuubi. It's alright. You can have a little bit more freedom. I'm fine, so relax a bit. Everyone shivered when Kyuubi smiled. With hesitation, Shino said, Anyo. Naruto.san. Nani? Shino.san. He had been plagued by the question, is that, I mean, is he really the Kyuubi no Kitsune? Ever since Naruto had begun fighting. Naruto looked at Shikamaru, who gave a small nod. It indicated that Shino was reliable. Then Naruto exhaled deeply. Naruto's explanation was interrupted by a clap from the other end of the bridge. Hi Shino.san, he is the Kyuubi no Kitsune. You see, he's the king of hell and also the being that destroyed Konoha. The only reason why I can summon him is because I am the Jin. They all turned and let out a moan, never again. A midget wearing a suit and tie was standing 250 feet away, followed by at least 100 additional mercenaries. Why were they never dead? The reason behind the man's clapping was unclear. Zabuza snarled. He had vowed to kill this man, and he would do so. Oi, Zabuza. Do you want any help killing the idiot in the specs over there? Hearing Kyuubi say this made Gato shudder a little. However, the fear vanished in an instant. HMPH, I am Gato, the ruler of Wave Country. It's best if you leave right now before we kill you. Although you have put together an admirable effort in wasting away Aoi's forces and Aoi himself. All of you are tired. You can't last much longer against my force. Gato said with an air of arrogance. Zabuza laughed. Ruler my ass. You're a fucking tyrant, that's what you are. What kind of ruler lets his people rot while he himself bathes in riches? I'll tell you what kind. The shitty kind. So kindly stand still while I murder you. My Zabuza, some demon you turned out to be. First you switch sides without telling us, and now you're lecturing me on how to rule my own empire. Isn't that a bit philosophical coming from a supposed demon? Gato chided. There was a growl from the mist demon. Gato would obtain a demon if that was what he desired. At the midget, Zabuza flashed his teeth. His sword fell to the ground. He had to kill this asswipe with his bare hands. Oi Kakashi. Asuma.san. Back me up here. It's time to teach this motherfucking son of a bitch just exactly why I'm so feared in the elemental nations. Oh, and Kyuubi, thanks, but no thanks. I need to have the pleasure of ripping this bastard's heart out of his pathetic body. As they prepared themselves in battle positions, Asuma and Kakashi nodded. Asuma produced his bloodied trench knives once more. They could have sprung at any moment. Despite his complaints, Kyuubi moved to stand close to Naruto. Zabuza flashed a savage smile. Gato felt the chill of fear running down his spine. The hunter was approaching its victim. In an instant, he was on his way, running to where Gato was. Gato yelled for his soldiers to attack at the same moment. The mercenaries believed they could prevail. The odds were on their side, after all. The score was 100-3. What might go wrong? Kakashi completed his Reikiri's seals in a flash. The force of his attack destroyed 3 approaching individuals. As he observed the blood gushing from his victims, Kakashi's masked lips turned upward in a savage grin. It was creative. As he killed more and more foes, a flood of maniacal laughter swept through the man. He needed to finish his masterpiece. Asuma sighed upon witnessing the massacre in Kakashi. For many reasons, Kakashi and Anko were the ideal pair. They were unrestrained in their sadism. Asuma stabbed a man in the stomach in a languid manner and grimly watched as the man collapsed to the ground. After all, it was a proven fact that ninja were insane. Gato stood rooted to the spot, watching the 3 men decimate his army, and he turned pale. When he saw Zabuza approaching him, he shit himself. He managed to stammer out to his guard, G. Get him. For Zabuza, time seemed to be passing slowly. He killed a man in front of him without thinking, all the while focusing on Gato. This Demona had destroyed a whole nation with no regret. Zabuza didn't do that either. He had never exploited women or children when he encountered them. Maybe he became sane after losing Akira and raising Haku, if that's what a shinobi was. But the individual in front of him had probably sexually assaulted thousands of women without ever thinking twice about it. Zabuza felt the bile rise in his throat as Haku and Naruto described what they had seen in that base that they had destroyed. In reality, how could he have been employed by that man? The money was good, I see now. In times of crisis, drastic measures are necessary. Then, he allowed himself to speculate as to what might happen if it were Haku in that setting. What would occur? He didn't want to imagine it at all. No matter what, he would never allow his baby girl to be placed in those circumstances. He had to kill Gato because of this. It was to ensure that Gato wouldn't place any other person's child in a brothel. The people of Wave would no longer have to suffer. Today would mark the end of Gato's rule. Have faith. Asuma, Kakashi, and the others halted their activities to observe Zabuza's behavior. Gato and Zabuza were now within 12 feet of each other. He was not carrying any weapons. The man's mind was racing with pure adrenaline. 7 feet. Gato felt the blood drain from him. 6 feet. He threw his guards at Zabuza. 5 feet. He had lost 3 of his guards. How? He was unaware. His heart ceased to beat. 4 feet. Gato gazed into his future murderer's onyx eyes. 3 feet. In front of him, Zabuza's hands ached for the midget's blood. 2 feet. The 2 men, 1 demon and 1 not, had all eyes on them, Determine who is who. Just 1 foot. Zabuza halted in front of Gato, who was terrified. It's over now, Gato. Your time has come. Say your last prayers, though I doubt anyone will hear them. Gato was immobile. His legs would not move. He remained rooted to the ground by an unseen force. Yes, his time was up. He shut his eyes. If I'm a demon, then what does that make you? Was the last thing he heard Zabuza say. Zabuza's hand tore through the sinew of Gato's chest until it reached his heart. The man's heart was torn out, and his body writhed pathetically. Silently, he crashed through the bridge. Zabuza held the shriveled tyrant's heart in his hand. It was done. It was a free wave. With wide eyes, everyone watched Zabuza return to them. The man's eyes lowered to the blood splattering over him and the heart that had just finished beating 2 seconds before. He threw the heart into the water beneath them and shrugged half-heartedly. When Tazuna saw Gato and his men, she winced. About 20 had made it out alive. In actuality, his bridge was a body dump. Cleaning up the mess the shinobi had created would take a very long time. On the inside, though, he was performing the lucky dance of Madarame Makaku. It was done. It was a free wave. Gato had passed away. There would be no more oppression of his nation. There would be peace again. The hired mercenaries were terrified as they gazed at the body of their fallen leader. Now he was dead. Who would now pay them? The 9 people they know, the 9 monsters in front of them had wiped out all of their allies. They charged at the shinobi in blind rage. You killed our meal ticket, now prepare to pay for the consequences. When Zabuza noticed the same smiles on the faces of Naruto, Haku, and Shikamaru, he tensed to counterattack but stopped. He questioned hesitantly, do you know something that we don't? Shikamaru chose to point to an arrow that flew overhead and stopped the mercenaries in their tracks rather than respond. A voice behind them called out, hey, don't you ever try to come here again, you meanie butts. Again. They turned slowly and saw all of Wave standing there with shovels, crowbars, bows, arrows, pitchforks, and arrows. Kenji and Inari were in the front of the army, each carrying a weapon of some kind. With triumphant expressions on their faces, Naruto, Shikamaru, and Haku's surviving Kage Bunshin also stood there. The sight of everyone in front of them made the mercenaries pale. Naruto grinned. He raised his hands in a seal that was all too familiar. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Suddenly, 100 clones appeared to protect the innocent bystanders who had joined the battle. Oi assholes. Do you want to die today? This sight made Kakashi laugh. I can always bluff, but I don't have much chakra left. 20 more clones appeared, but this time they were all Kakashis. He shouted, bring it on. Even more pale were the mercenaries. They had no chance of winning this battle. They ran frantically to the bridge's edge and leapt, unsure of what to do. It was about 50 feet below the surface. A large number of the remaining mercenaries were making fruitless attempts to scramble back to the coast. After a brief period of silence, a low rumble began. Mad cheering replaced the rumble. They danced around, men and women alike. However, with all the bodies scattered everywhere, it was quite difficult to do so. While parents rejoiced that their terrible situation was finally over, children shed happy tears. Naruto felt 2 individuals glomp him. Similar exclamations of, Ni. Chan. Ni. Chan. Caused him to look at his midriff. Kenji and Inari clung to him like metal and magnets. He stroked their hair with his bloodied hands and grinned gently. Inari yelled, Ni. Chan. We did it, they're gone forever. We couldn't have done it without you 3. Kenji said reverently as he nodded his head angrily. Haku and Shikamaru had joined Naruto by this point. Nay. Chan. Ni. Chan. They could now be glomped too. Shikamaru patted the boys' heads and sighed in a choked way. We did it. Damn, our first real mission and it ends up like this. You're telling us. We thought this would be a C-rank mission, not a frickin' A-ranked. I guess we have Tazuna-san to thank for that though. Ino continued. Sheepishly, Tazuna rubbed the back of his head. Tazuna shouted, Oi Mina, loudly enough for everyone to hear. The crowd immediately fell silent. He yelled, free sake for everyone today. The cheering instantly multiplied tenfold. He offered that, but no one would accept. Kakashi asked them in a tone of amusement and indifference, you 3. Mind telling us what exactly you did that made the entire population of Wave come here? It's a long story really. Perhaps we should take this somewhere private. The 3 in question exchanged chuckling looks. The remaining mercenaries who had finally returned to Wave fled again when they saw their leader's charred body, and for the first time in a long time, Wave felt happy. It had taken 17 hours for everything to fully settle down. Gado's heartless body was paraded around the town and set on fire. It didn't hurt that they had a village like Konoha supporting them either. Wave was in a state of ecstasy. Kakashi and Asuma had hit all of Gado's bases, producing enough money to keep Wave afloat for the next 10 years. They knew that this feeling of euphoria would not leave them for long. A leader would soon be chosen, and they knew that the leader would make Wave prosper once more. Tazuna's bridge was covered in 200 bodies, and at first he was a little hysterical, wondering how they would be taken out. But Kyuubi had created a huge ball of fire that burned them all at once before returning to his seal, leaving them all in a heap of ash, and Naruto's simple futon jutsu carried the ashes into the ocean beneath the bridge. The only sign that a battle had occurred were the enormous splotches of blood all over the place, but they would also be removed in a day or so. It was a day of rest and recovery for all of them, as the battle had severely damaged their bodies, particularly those of Shino and Choji, whose bodies were still wrapped in gauze. The shinobi and Tazuna's family were now sitting outside, taking in the stunning scenery of the country. Inari and Kenji had literally gone to every home and pouted in front of the adults. For those who melted instantly, they took whatever materials they had and set out. For those who didn't, well, that's where the killer intent came in. Naruto, Shikamaru, and Haku had explained what they had done to agitate the residents of Wave. It only took puppy dog eyes from a 7-year-old and a lot of killer intent. Needless to say, it worked very effectively. The drawback of this was that they were constantly being hounded by Wave residents who wanted to know the specifics of how they had defeated the tyrant and his friends. It appeared that a Naruto-sama fan club had been formed. The girls followed him everywhere he went. He was beginning to realize why Uchiha Sasuke was gay. And all of this was too much for him to handle. Naruto whispered, "Shino-san, it was time to be honest with Shino." In response, the stoic boy said, "Naruto-san." The others paid close attention to what Naruto had to say to the boy. "You have been feeling excluded ever since we got here, and I know that." Naruto sighed deeply and said, "I have decided that you are a trustworthy person, so I will tell you the whole story behind me." A little more upright, Shino said, "Go on Naruto-san." The shinobi exchanged cautious glances, wondering if it was a good idea to do this, particularly in front of civilians. "You must be wondering why I summoned the Kyuubi no Kitsune yesterday on the bridge," Naruto responded. After nodding, Shino said, "It's been eating at me ever since." The solution is very straightforward. The reason for this is that I am the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki, or nine-tailed fox. The camp fell silent, and then Shino said, "Jinchuriki, human sacrifice?" "Yes. You see, the Yondaime Hokage sealed the Kyuubi into a baby yesterday whose chakra coils had not yet formed 12 years prior. I was that baby, as you can imagine. Additionally, I will tell you why he did it. I am his son, which is why. Do you see me differently, Shino-san?" Although the majority of the audience was aware of this, Naruto's revelation was shocking to Shino and the civilians. Shino looked at Naruto critically, but the boy was unfazed because he understood the distinction between a kunai and the scroll in which the kunai was sealed. The battle on the bridge demonstrated that Naruto and the Kyuubi were two distinct entities, and he had his answer. "No, Naruto-san, I don't. You and I are more alike than I initially thought," Asuma Sensei had informed me. "I now know why. I've been watching you since our academy days. I've always wondered why you were treated so badly by the civilians. I even questioned my parents about whether your parents had done anything to offend Konoha. My father, however, denied that. I understand now why." Shino pushed up his glasses and remarked, "The son of the Yondaime is no more the Kyuubi than I am." "Shino-san, our parents used to be on the same team together," Naruto said, taking in everything Shino had said and smiling. He had another person who accepted him. "Actually, when we were younger, Shibi.G.san and Tokiko.san invited me over for dinner on multiple occasions. But you didn't come with us." His father and mother had never mentioned this to him, so Shino's eyebrows went up a little when Naruto revealed it. "Naruto-san, as I mentioned before, Asuma Sensei told me that we are more alike than you think. I don't have the Kyuubi inside of me," Shino said, letting a tiny laugh escape his lips. "However, because my clan uses bugs in a rather unusual way, Konoha tends to avoid us. We simply disappear into the background. That freaky bug boy was my nickname in the academy, I think. Almost every pore in my body is home to insects. People have a different perspective on us and don't know what's inside of us. Therefore, even though it is far less than the amount you experienced, I think I do understand some of the pain you went through as a child." Shino was a good friend and maybe a better person than Naruto had initially thought. "Arigato, Shino-san," Naruto said, his eyes clouding over. Being able to accept me for who I am, rather than what's stuck in my stomach, means a lot to me. Shino simply grinned in an unusual way and stopped there. Then, to his surprise, Naruto noticed that all three of the civilians were grinning. Naruto, even if you had rat turds sealed inside of you, we wouldn't give a damn. You are both a hero and the son of a hero. So remove that anxious look from your face. You look older than you actually are, and it doesn't fit you at all. With a big smile on his face, Tazuna exclaimed. Climbing onto Naruto's lap, Inari said, Chan is Chan. That won't ever change. With a genuine smile that only he shared with his closest companions, Naruto said, thank you for everything. How about I fulfill my offer on that free sake, eh? Tazuna laughed. If there was one thing that everyone learned that night, it was that drinking and Ino don't mix well. She had not only ruined the place, but she had also pulled down Shino's collar, looked at him, called him a handsome piece of meat, and kissed him full on the lips twice. It wasn't just a harmless kiss, either, it was the real deal, tongue and all. Tsunami shielded poor Inari's eyes so he wouldn't be permanently scarred, and if that didn't make the silent bug boy squeak, I don't know what did. Shino hoped that Ino would forget about it because it might ruin team dynamics. Naruto and Shikamaru's shadow bind were needed to subdue the raging girl. Tazuna wasn't happy when he looked at his house. The others were laughing uncontrollably at Shino's red face. They knew that after yesterday he could scream like a banshee. Maybe he was related to Sakura somehow, and they would never take Shino seriously again with that emotionless voice he put on. Ino woke up the following morning with a splitting headache and a dim memory of kissing someone. She wondered why it was strange that Shino would not look her in the eye and why people would squirm when they saw her. Eventually, she realized what was going on and repeatedly apologized to Shino, who, unsure of what to do, gave her a quick pat on the head, while blushing wildly, and assured her that everything was fine. And now, a week had gone by, and the group was getting ready to head home with two more people. Haku and Zabuza were thrilled to have a place to call home after all this time, though Haku was more excited than Zabuza. The bridge was finally constructed with the aid of Naruto and Shikamaru's shadow clones, and Tazuna, who was a very good bridge builder for a drunkard, had cried with happiness when the final nail was driven in. In addition to the bridge, Naruto had taken the initiative to establish a proper orphanage for the children he had seen on the streets, and he had found two very generous people who would use the money he had laid to expand the foundation. Kenji and the others were thrilled that they were no longer homeless, and they knew that they would be adopted after all. Who could turn down those adorable puppy dog eyes? It goes without saying that Wave owed Konoha a debt of gratitude, and their bravery would live on for a very long time. In front of the entire Wave population, the 9 shinobi stood. Tsunami had given them a delicious lunch as a farewell gift, and Shoji felt like he was on cloud 9. The days had been slow and lazy, but they were itching to get home. Asuma was missing the ice. Queen of Konoha, Kakashi was lonely without his Icha. Icha girl, and Haku and Zabuza simply wanted to return to the place where their family called home. Everyone in Wave had come to bid farewell to their saviors, and while it was sad, they knew that Wave would start over. Tsunami.san, Tazuna.san, Inari, thank you for allowing us to stay in your home, Naruto said, raising a single hand in a farewell gesture. It was a real pleasure to be with all of you. No, Naruto, Tazuna waved it away. We are sincerely appreciative of all that you 9 have done for Wave. This bridge would not have been possible without all of you. Our savior will always be Konoha. Therefore, we are eternally grateful from the bottom of our hearts. He bowed to them, and the rest of Wave imitated. The shinobi, who apparently weren't very good at saying goodbye, just stood there clumsily, unsure of what to do. After taking both Naruto's and Shikamaru's hands in his own, Inari approached him and gave him a startled look before saying, I swear to you, I'll grow up to be a fantastic shinobi like you guys someday. We can all fight together after that. He also included Haku's hand in the mix. The boy pouted, but a smile quickly returned to his face as the 3 cousins all ruffled his hair and smiled at him. Then, I think it's best that we leave right now, Kakashi said softly. I'm not so sure I'll be able to drag you guys back if we stay any longer. They all chuckled at this, and then they turned around and waved to the town again, glancing back a couple of times. Even as the shinobi faded into the distance, Tazuna continued to wave. It's time to name this bridge, Tazuna, someone shouted at me. Tazuna struck his contemplative pose and nodded, saying, Aha, Tazuna's super. Great, awesome, bridge. Appear. Awesomeness is what we'll call it. That absurd name, which wouldn't even fit on the plaque, made the populace perspire. Grandpa, let's name it something that, Inari said, pulling on his grandfather's trousers. Naruto. Ni. Chan. Let's name the bridge after Naruto. Ni. Chan, shouted Kenji. The Great Bridge of Naruto. Tazuna whispered, it sounds nice. Are you certain, Dad? You know, Naruto wasn't the only one who saved this nation, Tsunami remarked dutifully. I am aware of that, but that Naruto Childa the all area will grow up to be a fantastic person. Inari helped transform Wave after Naruto transformed her. Hundreds of children adore him because he even established an orphanage. Our bridge will be named after it. One day, I think it will be very famous, he said, more to himself than to anyone else. Yash? Minna. In honor of the boy who transformed Wave Country, this bridge is known as the Great Naruto Bridge. Do you like the name? If there was one thing Tazuna was certain of, it was that the future was in safe hands, no matter what it took to get there. His response was the thunderous applause of his people. Orochimaru grinned elsewhere in Otto. His testing was almost finished, and he had just transferred bodies. Unlike the previous vessel, which was incredibly weak, this one was stronger despite being a woman's body, and it was perfect. The Chunin exams were less than 2 weeks away, and he would be disguised as a grass.nin. His genin were ready, and all he needed was his ultimate prize, the Sharingan. Itachi had turned him down, but his brother was too weak not to, and Uchiha Sasuke would be his after one cursed seal. Ku. It's time for your period of peace to come to an end, Konoha. Just wait. It is time for you to learn the definition of fear. I need to reclaim what is rightfully mine. The fall of Konoha will bring the rise of my empire of Otto. With a menacing hiss, he said, so sayonara to everything you once loved. The sky grew darker as clouds formed on the horizon, and Konoha would need to be prepared for the impending war. The mansion of Tsunagakura. Cage he was bored, and he had nothing to do until he and his siblings left for Konoha in a few weeks. I could go and kill some villagers, he thought ruefully, laughing inwardly as he stared out of his room's window. Gaara was known and feared in Suna. He was the monster, the thing that the Cage had created as an ultimate weapon, and he simply killed indiscriminately and carelessly, killing anyone who walked within 2 feet of him. A set of hands encircled his body. Gaara.kun, try not to think too much. A female voice whispered in his ear, your face will become wrinkled. Gaara's thoughts were interrupted when he turned around and saw his older brother Kankuro leaning against the doorframe with his hands folded across his chest, as well as the face of his older sister Sabaku.no, Tamari. Tamari would have been crushed in a coffin of sand if the rumors were true, but they were obviously untrue. You see, Gaara was not a vicious killer. He only killed people who attempted to kill him at his father's command. His siblings realized that he was very submissive when he refrained from attacking them in the crib. So what made people believe that Gaara.kun was a monster? Well, his father, the Yondaime Cage, announced to the entire village that the Shukaku resided within said boy. It wasn't a secret either. The Cage also went on to say that the monster within the boy was not sealed properly and needed blood to be sated. This was the biggest piece of bullshit in the world. The truth was, Gaara had a Biju and a priest sealed within him. The priest was the one who would have made the vessel crazy rather than Shukaku herself. Yes. She, the Tanuki, was a girl. Why else would Gaara call her mother? When the two of them were sealed together, the Tanuki and priest had fought for dominance, and the Tanuki had eventually won, killing the spirit of the priest. With the priest gone, Gaara would not be a murderous, psychopathic person. He would only be sleep-deprived. Shukaku would emerge if he went to bed. Not that it would have affected anyone or anything. She was the most calm and level-headed out of all of the Biju. The rule was, the more tails you had, the crazier and stronger you were. Her lord, Kyuubi. Sama was an absolute maniac when he was in power. The last she had heard was that he was put under a genjutsu that made him attack Konoha. It appeared as though her and him were sealed at roughly the same time. She was excited in meeting him soon. His vessel and Gaara would no doubt be drawn to each other because of the bond that they felt. It's late, Tamari and Kankuro. In his usual monotone, Gaara said, get some rest. Tamari sighed. Why was he ordering her? Moga.kun. She was the oldest person here, not Gaara. Here, we're keeping you company. Enjoy it until we fall asleep. She's right, brother. After all, we should discuss our strategy one more time, Kankuro responded. Suna and Konoha had a very shaky alliance, one that was essentially destroyed even after the Yondaime Hokage's death, and now Suna was going to attack Konoha in the Chunin exam finals, which were in a month and a half. Gaara said bluntly, I refuse to participate in it. His siblings merely gazed at him before uttering fragments of speech. But Gaara, if you don't, your father will be very upset, Konkuro yelled. Kakuro, please lower your voice. Temari shushed him quickly. Gaara. Why? With hesitation, she asked him. First of all, that man is not my father, Gaara said, getting to his feet and glaring at his brother and sister, who cowered under his unusually harsh glare. I won't accept him as a father because he has never treated me like a son. Second, that man formed a partnership with the snake Sanin from the Hidden Leaf, Orochimaru. I cringe every time I see that man. Those two men will be leading this event, and I will not be taking part. You two are allowed to do as you please. Shukaku whispered in Gaara's mind, you made the right choice, dear. Plus, we don't want to enrage the Lord if we attack his vessel's home. Regardless of what anyone says, I know, mother, that I will not do this. His two other siblings stiffened, faced with a choice. Would they support Gaara and not carry out the invasion, or would they betray their home village? When we travel to Konoha is up to you two. The question was, Suna or Gaara? His siblings stared after him as he retreated from the room, but Gaara concluded, think, and the answer will come. 9 people were less than 50 miles from Konoha at the same time, and they were camped out in a picturesque spot where the stars could be seen. Since there was no civilian among them, they were able to travel much more quickly using their ninja pace. They had left Wave that morning, and nothing had happened, no bandits, rogue nins, or nothingza, but there was silence, which was a welcome change. Kakashi had one of his nin dogs deliver a message to the Sandane, saying that they would arrive sometime tomorrow. After all, there were only 50 miles to cover, and a skilled ninja can run 8 miles per hour for 6 hours without stopping, so they would only need to make one stop tomorrow. Asuma reassured them that this was the life of a ninja and that if they couldn't accept death, then the shinobi lifestyle was not for them at all. Ino had puked a few times, Choji refused to eat, and Shinoa he had literally gone into his own shell of bugsa where his beetles had formed a shield around him so that no one could see what he was doing. This was the only hiccup in the journey. The 3 rookie genins, apart from Naruto and Shikamaru, had finally realized how many lives they had actually taken, and it sickened them that they had killed someone else, taken a human life. It had been a gloomy atmosphere, but it was gradually improving. Shikamaru and Haku, who had the first shift in the night guard, were the only 2 people awake. Despite having only known each other for less than 2 weeks, they felt at ease in each other's company. As the full moon cast a pale shadow over the earth, Haku looked up at the stunning night sky, where stars twinkled and gleamed in the distance. Nay Shikamaru.kun, what's Konoha like? Abruptly, she asked the brunette. She looked at him expectantly, and he cleared his throat as he said, Konoha. How exactly do I describe her? It was like the sound of rain hitting the ground for the first time, and it made him jump. The village is one of the biggest hidden villages in the elemental nations, so I guess one could say it's pretty big. Everything is centered on the Hokage Tower, which is located in the middle of the village. In Konoha, every major clan has its own complex. The Akamichi, Choji's clan, and the Yamanaka Ino complexes are adjacent to Naruto and my complex. The Aburames, Shino's clan, have their complex 2 streets over. When we arrive in Konoha, I'll give you a more thorough tour. She flushed at that. He had hinted that he wanted to spend more time with her once they got, dare she say it, home. He also wore a bright red coloring, but the darkness obscured that. It appears that he was thinking along the same lines. What about the people who live there? She asked more questions. You're not a spy, are you? He asked her sharply. Before I tell you anything more, I just want to be certain. It was like bells chiming together when Shikamaru realized how much he enjoyed her laugh. Kami, no, all I want to know is about my family's house and my new one. Well, Konoha is obviously a ninja village, but we do have civilians as well, he said, giving her a lopsided smile. Haku saw his abrupt change in attitude and chose not to inquire further. But there are 2 civilians that I truly respect, and those are Tuchi.san and Ayame.ne. Chan, he said, recalling the cruel glares that Naruto had endured for almost his entire life. I don't like many of the civilians mainly because of how they treated Naruto as a kid. They're the owners of Ichiraku Ramen, a neighborhood ramen shop. More so than mine, Naruto's restaurant is our favorite. He will always be thankful to them for being the first civilians to treat Naruto with respect, Shikamaru continued. Haku gave a nod and noted in her mind to visit that location as soon as she was comfortable. However, the ninja population has significantly improved. You've probably heard of a few of our top ninjas. Kaka.ni, the White Fang's son, is there. His mother is the sister of Jiraiya.G-san. The Hokage himself is the father of Asuma.ni. Next up is Maeda Guy. He's a taijutsu master and a bit of an eccentric. After training with him, avoid looking him in the eye at all costs. It will make you want to throw up. In addition, he has Lee, a miniature clone. Never, ever, under any circumstances discuss youth with them. Haku thought he was being a little melodramatic, but he didn't say anything because of the pained expression on his face. The results are not pretty. Shikamaru shuddered at the strange genjutsu that appeared when those two had one of their Sensei, Lee, moments. Additionally, refrain from making remarks about their attire. Maybe you'll wear it after all, he added. What about their attire is so awful? She inquired. Green spandex, was his straightforward response. Now it was her turn to tremble. Ninjas wore strange clothes, but that was just the cherry on top. Who in their right mind wore green spandex? The only benefit of it was that it made you blend in with the surroundings. Mitarashi Anko is another individual that we hold in the highest regard. She's a fairly normal person, except for her sadism and her obsession with Dango. You must meet her. It seems to me that you two will get along very well. He held up his pinky finger and said, I think she's Kaka.ni-s, but I can't be sure yet. Shikamaru kept telling her about all the ninja in Konoha, and now she understood why he had asked her if she was spying. He was essentially giving her the Konoha outline. They spoke for a good 30 minutes or so, and Haku was amazed at how at ease she was with him. Naruto abruptly approached them drowsily and said, Oi, sweethearts, the shifts are over. Will you make an effort to hold it down? You know, people are trying to get some sleep. He complained, but he enjoyed watching them flush. The two hurriedly rose and headed out for some much-needed rest. They all woke up at precisely 6 in the morning, and after 20 minutes, they were all cleaned up and given ration bars because Konoha was just a few hours away. They made good progress, only pausing when Zabuza desperately needed a bathroom break 6 hours later. They caught their breath and were ready to continue, and Kakashi thanked his lucky stars that Sakura was not on this team at the moment because she would have significantly slowed down the mission. The Eternal Chunin, Katetsu and Izumo were on guard, and the 9 slowed to civilian pace and walked slowly up to the gates, where Haku and Zabuza were amazed by the size of Konoha. Halt! Communicate your business to Konoha, Katetsu yelled. I believe you're performing your duties a bit too well, Mama Katetsu.san. In his characteristically distant tone, Kakashi said, It's this, Team 7 and Team 9 returned on an A-ranked mission. Katetsu swallowed. All right, but who are the other 2 people attending? With suspicion, Izumo inquired. Katetsu began, Izu, that's Momo. Zabuza interrupted, it's actually Uzumaki Zabuza, thanks very much. Their jaws dropped as Naruto explained, my uncle and my cousin. The 2 Chunin gazed at Zabuza for a long moment before turning back to Naruto. Oh no, what were they to do when their favorite blonde's uncle was the renowned demon of the hidden mist? They're here to apply to Konoha, huh? We must speak with Sandaime. Sama. So let's go, Asuma said to them. A few of the ninja paused and stared at the strange group, and whispers and sly looks were directed at them as the guards reluctantly allowed them to pass. The 9 entered Konoha slowly, with no real rush. This was going to be enjoyable, Zabuza grinned. Shikamaru sighed, how about we just hurry up to Gigi's office? The others nodded. Haku took Ino, Shikamaru took Choji, and Naruto grabbed Shino before they all disappeared in different directions. It'll save us a lot of trouble. Kurenai was turning in their report when 9 people, to the surprise of everyone in the room, including Sasuke, raised an eyebrow. The Sandaime Hokage was currently in a meeting with Team 8, and Iruka was also there, sorting through missions. Team 8 had just returned from their first C-rank mission, which involved leading a refugee back to his town, which was 30 miles from Konoha. Hiruzen sighed upon seeing who it was, but he was curious as to why Momochi Zabuza and an unidentified Kunoichi were present. Kiba ran to his friends after Team 8 gave the others an uncomfortable look. Hey, I heard about your mission from Anko. How did it go? With great enthusiasm, he asked. It was peachy. Shikamaru answered, we were actually going to tell Gigi about it just now. He questioned how Anko knew they were on this mission. Was it the Sandaime, or was it his enamored cousin? Shikamaru. Show respect to the Sandaime. Normally, I say that to Naruto, Iruka reprimanded. It's okay, Iruka, I don't mind, the Sandaime said, waving it away. Actually, Team 8 was just finished. What specifically occurred on your mission that resulted in you bringing home a missing nin intrigues me. Sasuke looked at the Dobi and said, well, it's a long story, and we would love to tell it to you. Sasuke had never really spoken to Naruto before, but he knew that he was a terrible ninja before, but now he wasn't so sure. Sasuke may have been arrogant, but he wasn't stupid. Naruto had changed a lot, both in terms of appearance and ability. He and the other Dobi were very comfortable with the elite ninja of Konoha, and from what he had observed when they were placed on teams, he and the other Dobi seemed to be like grandfathers to them. If they were so strong, then why did they hide their skills? If you have it, flaunt it. That was Sasuke's motto. Hinata would have spoken, but her words were always stuttering, making it impossible for anyone to understand her. Kurenai interpreted this as her cue to depart, saying, "Come on, team, we have to go. We need to improve on a lot of things, most notably teamwork." She looked at Kakashi in frustration and glanced fearfully at Zabuza. As she was leaving, she made sure to give Asuma a firm butt pinch so he wouldn't forget where he needed to go after his meeting was over. The poor man gave a strangled yelp and turned a brilliant crimson. Kakashi, who was beside him, laughed at his best friend's situation and growled, "Shut it or I'll tell everyone exactly what you do with Anko each night." Kakashi immediately stopped talking. How did he know? Wait. Fuck me, he's Anko's other neighbor. So, would you mind explaining to me why a nuke.nin known as the Demon of the Hidden Mist is present among us? Hiruzen cleared his throat expectantly. Now, Gigi, don't you see how similar we are? Naruto smiled. In fact, it's pretty poetic. The Demon of the Hidden Mist is related to the Demon of Konoha. Everyone flinched at his words. Naruto, what do you mean by related? Curious, Iruka asked the boy. This is Zabuza, who is also my OG.san because he is my mother's brother. Sandame's shocked expression made Zabuza laugh, and he felt compelled to respond as well. It goes like this, he said. Gato hired me to murder the clients of these people. We were fighting, he said, pointing to Asuma's squad, when Naruto did his freaky whatever you want to call it. Ah yes. That mental link that works with those who are related to him by blood. Naruto and his cousins were backup for the Genin team over here. When I told him and my daughter heard it, he was astonished. We stopped fighting at that point, and he identified himself as the son of Kushina.ne. Chan. The rest is history. The last full-blooded Uzumaki and long-lost son of the Azukage was standing in front of Sarutobi, whose eyes widened even more. Mental link? Naruto had a lot of explaining to do. Are you claiming to be the son of Uzumaki Hideki, the Azukage? Everyone's jaws dropped except for Naruto, Shikamaru, Kakashi, and Haku when the Sandame asked the man incredulously, Zabuza was the son of a Kage? That pretty much gave him diplomatic immunity. Yes. Zabuza chirped. You are the brother of Konoha's bloody red habanero, Uzumaki Kushina? Whoa, she was called that. She looks great in that. You are Nara Naruto's uncle. Aha. You are the cousin to Senju Tsunade. Geez, it's been like 30 years since I last saw Tsunade ne.san. Not a joke. The Demon of the Hidden Mist was the cousin of Asanin, the son of a Kage, the brother.in.law of another Kage, the nephew of two more Kages, and probably the uncle of a future Kage. Iruka was actually on the ground. And I'm assuming that you and your daughter want refuge here? Well duh. I want to be close to the last of my living family, and Naruto here is it. Sarutobi had a lot of terrible headaches because of Naruto. Someone shouldn't be permitted to cause so much trouble. Sandame. Sama, one last thing. My daughter Haku, she has a bloodline. Zabuza continued. He was aware of Konoha's fetish for bloodlines. However, he had no intention of allowing his daughter to be used as a breeding stock. Hiruzen blinked. In Konoha, a new bloodline? It was going to be a field day for the elders. Oh, and what exactly is it? Haku was pushed forward by Shikamaru. Sandame. Sama, my bloodline comes from that of the Yuki clan. I'm sure that you've heard of it. It was exterminated in the bloodline raids in the mist, and I am the last of that clan I believe. It is Hyoden. I create ice by combining my water and wind chakra. Once more, Hiruzen blinked. He was familiar with the Yuki clan. Having that bloodline was extremely powerful, and now one of its bearers voluntarily wished to enter Konoha. He was unable to deny that. You do realize Zabuza.san, that many clans are going to want Haku Chan's bloodline in their own clan. The elders will most likely want her to marry the Uchiha or Hyuga to create an even more powerful bloodline. Naruto snarled. Gigi. I will never let my cousin marry Sasuke or Hyuga. You know that there are barely any males in the Hyuga main house, and if she marries into the branch house, she's going to be branded with the Kage seal. Zabuza.og-san would kill anyone that did that. I agree with him, Sandame. Sama. With all due respect, I believe that the Sharingan or Byakugan will overpower my own bloodline. Therefore it is prudent that when I take a husband, he would be from a clan with a bloodline that is compatible with my own. Haku replied softly. Sarutobi understood the reasoning behind what she and Naruto were saying. Indeed, they had once attempted to conceive Yamanaka and Uchiha children. The Sharingan was all that was given to the child. Naruto complained, "TCH, just give her to Shikamaru and it'll be fine." Haku gave him a head slap. Naruto-kun, I am not something to be given away. Remember that or I'll kill you. She growled menacingly over her shoulder. Ino gave her a shoulder pat. It was girl power. As Naruto tended to his sore head, she gave him a menacing glare. No one is more angry than a woman who is scorned. Shikamaru appeared somewhat dazed. The older men in the room noticed the effect that Naruto's words had on him. Hiruzen let out a sigh. Very well then. I really have no choice in this matter anyway. To refuse Uzumaki royalty into the village is a sin in itself. Uzumaki Zabuza. Uzumaki Haku. Do you pledge your allegiance to Konoha and Konoha only? If so, then kneel on the ground. Hi. The father and daughter approached the Sandaime, kneeling on the ground. Do you swear on your blood that you will protect the will of fire that burns within each and every individual? Hi. Will you live and die for Konoha? Hi. Very well then. Hiruzen took 2 Konoha headbands out of his drawer. Congratulations. You are now Konoha Shinobi. The Uzumaki's faces lit up with relief. As his recently reinstated Konoha Shinobi stood up, Naruto cheered. He asked abruptly, hang on Gigi, what level will they be? The Sandaime paused to reflect. Well, Zabuza will be a Jonin, but he will be under surveillance for some time. I'm sorry Zabuza, but you are still a missing nin, and it's protocol. Don't worry, it'll only be for 2 months, and Haku. Aha! Kakashi, you should know that I cast Haruno Sakura out of your squad due to her terrible performance. This is a blessing in disguise. Haku. Chan can join your squad. All 3 of them are around the same level, and now your team will be more balanced. Zabuza murmured under his breath but accepted it. After all, it might have been much worse. As Haku turned to face Naruto and Shikamaru, her eyebrows shot upward. Their faces showed the most contented looks. Like the others, Kakashi was pleasantly surprised. Shikamaru muttered to himself, it's about time. Haku and I will now be spending a lot more time together. Oh no, she's just a girl, not it, damn it, why am I fighting with myself? I'm so stupid. Women are expected to be problematic. I'm Inara. Even my thoughts are problematic, TCH. Gigi, I've been meaning to ask you this question for a while. Why did you put Shikamaru, me, and Kaka.ni on the same team? I mean, family members aren't allowed on the same team, are they? Naruto asked. Sarutobi laughed. Naruto, besides Ino or Choji, and maybe even Shino, you wouldn't work well with anyone else. Shikamaru and you make a good team. As to Kakashi as your sensei, I felt that Kurenai would able to mellow Sasuke out more so than Kakashi. But eventually, Kakashi, you will have to teach the boy something. But only when he awakens the Sharingan. Till then, you're safe. Kakashi sighed inwardly as he nodded. There was absolutely no personality in the boy. It would be too much trouble to train him. Now that the formalities are out of the way, why don't you 9 tell us exactly what happened in Wave? After a while. And so Zabuza.san ripped out Gato's heart. After that, there were a few minor incidents here and there, but Wave was effectively free. We stayed there for a week afterwards because our students were still recovering from their injuries. Asuma ended their story. Iruka and Hiruzen were in a daze. Every genin present had killed previously and had handled it well enough. Wow. That's all I can really say. That was quite a tale there. This mission, though it was too much for rookie genin, did teach you one lesson, and that was to expect the unexpected. I'm sorry that you all had to kill so young, however this is the reality of our lives. Well then, I'm sure you all need some time to rest among other things. So I'm giving you the rest of the day off. Come by tomorrow for more missions. Zabuza.san, tonight, we'll introduce you to the rest of the Jonin population. I'm sure Kakashi and Asuma will be more than happy to do so. Oh, one more thing. Now that the last Uzumaki has returned to Konoha, would you like to be given the status as the head of the Uzumaki clan? Zabuza spit his own spit and choked. With a more courteous tone, he said, what, I mean, are you serious? The Sandaime gave a nod. Yes, you are forgetting that the Uzumaki clan is one of the clans that helped build Konoha along with the Senju. They have held council seats since the beginning. Zabuza asked, oh, and who's the current head, if there is one? Oh, I see. Naruto had already brought up this subject. Naruto replied to his uncle, that would be myself. Every genin, with the exception of Shikamaru, gave the boy a startled look. Yes, because up until now, I was the only real Uzumaki in Konoha. I've held the council seat for the clan. However, I've never gone to a meeting. On paper, I'm the head of the clan, but it's Tsunade.ba Chan who actually attends the meetings as head of the Senju and advisor of the Uzumaki. She's only a quarter Uzumaki though. I'll happily relinquish the post to you if you want. Zabuza pondered for a few minutes. I'd rather not. Clan politics are not really my thing. Naruto, sorry man, but I'll leave the clan to you. We don't really have enough members to be called a clan in the first place, just like the Senju. I'll take Tsunade's place as your advisor if you want. Naruto concurred with his uncle's opinion. That's fine, plus I'm sure Tsunade.ba Chan won't mind. Just watch your back when she comes back. She might kill you for not contacting her in so long. When Zabuza thought of his cousin's fiery temper, he shuddered. I hear you there, Naruto. So, where will Haku and I be staying? I have a vacant apartment next to mine in one of the shinobi complexes. We can go check it out after this. Asuma said. Plus, Kakashi lives next door to me, he continued. Kakashi spluttered after remaining silent up until this point. No I don't. Asuma made fun of his friend by asking, oh, then why'd I hear you every night in that apartment? Naruto and Shikamaru went pale. Asuma lived next door to Anko. Therefore, it was true a crap. What do you mean Asuma? Kakashi lives in the Nara complex. Sarutobi responded. Asuma ignored the death glares that Kakashi was attempting to give him with his single open eye and answered, does he really? Whoops, I must have forgotten. Sarutobi gazed questioningly at two of his elite jonin. He looked at the 9 in front of him and shook his head. Very well then, I suppose that settles that then. Kakashi, Asuma, I expect a full report on this tomorrow. Wave Country. One day will be a very important place. It's a good thing that they're free now. Once they are back on their feet, we can open up trade routes with them. So all of you shall receive pay for an A-ranked mission, plus extra money for opening up an economic venture for Konoha. Now, I want to talk to Naruto alone, so all of you are dismissed. Hi! Was yelled loudly throughout the room. After giving Naruto a shoulder pat, Shikamaru and Haku disappeared. Asuma looked at his father strangely but was ready to go. The others went out on foot or with Shushin. Iruka and the Sandaime simply gazed at Naruto for about a minute when they were by themselves. He became uneasy with their stares. His voice was nervous as he asked, what? Why, am I here? Hiruzen let out a sigh. Naruto, there's a couple things I want to talk to you about. First off, Tsunade sent me a full report of the damage that Orochimaru's venom did to Mizuki's body. That made Naruto think of something Aoi had said, Mizuki. Oji.san. Before you tell me what Chan sent, there's something that we forgot to mention in the reports. Before we started to fight, Aoi said something about Otogakure. That's where Mizuki went to, and he came back changed. Aoi went on to mention that Otto wanted to destroy Konoha or something like that. It leads me to believe that Orochimaru is somehow involved with the village. Now I told Enko.ne and Kaka.ni the same thing when Mizuki stole the scroll. If you remember correctly, he was sent on a mission to make diplomatic negotiations with the village. I'm pretty sure that Orochimaru is the leader of this new village. Naruto said to his Oji.san. Iruka and Hiruzen both stiffened. For Konoha, this was bad news. Hiruzen was aware that Jiraiya was investigating the village known as Otto, but they urgently needed hard proof that Orochimaru was in charge of this community. Hiruzen had a hunch that something was about to happen to Konoha, but he was unsure of why. Thank you for that information, Naruto. I do believe that it ties into what I need to tell you. You see, your hypothesis was that Orochimaru's venom concentrated in his heart causing the aorta to burst. Now this is only half true. In reality, the venom sealed off all the Tenketsu points in the body. As you can tell, that means that the body's self-healing capabilities as well as the usage of chakra is gone. When Mizuki's aorta burst, it was simply an unforeseen side effect. Mizuki's bloodstream also contained animal chromosomes. Now these chromosomes are not compatible with the body in terms an extended amount of time, however they do give a short power burst, hence the animal-like features that we saw Mizuki had. Now, the body would then fight off the invading enemies entering the bloodstream and the entire immune system would collapse. This coupled with sealed Tenketsus means death. Naruto was given a few minutes by Hiruzen to process the information. Normally, I would suggest making an antidote, but it seems too complex to create. There are so many variables that have to be accounted for that an antidote might make it worse. The child finally spoke. Indeed. I even talked to Hiyashi.san, because I believed that Orochimaru's concoction sounded like a Juken strike. But he agreed with your thoughts as well. An antidote would be impossible. Hiruzen agreed. As Iruka observed the couple, she couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. Naruto had changed so much. Like Shikamaru, he was very quick, witted and intelligent. How could it have been concealed for so long by those two boys with such sharp minds? A blonde asked the elderly man, "So, what else did you want to talk to me about?" Hiruzen rubbed his facial hair. "Well, Zabuza mentioned this mental link that you had. Care to explain it to me?" Naruto flinched. Sarutobi was aware of his contact with the Kyuubi, but he was unsure of the extent of it. Anyo. Ito. Ah. Alright. I'll tell you. So this is a link that Kyuubi sets up for me when I need to talk to someone telepathically. The eyes of the two adults grew wide. Iruka questioned incredulously, telepathically? Naruto, do you mean that you can talk to people through their minds? And the Kyuubi? Well, that's kind of why it's a mental link, isn't it? He exhaled. It doesn't work with everyone. Only those that I share blood with. Like Zabuza.og said before, it's how we found out he was my uncle. Shikamaru, Kakashi, and myself were discussing the best way to take him down, and he heard everything because of the link. I can't stop my family from hearing my thoughts when we talk through it. Hiruzen combed his gray hair with his hand. Naruto, you shouldn't have kept something like this from me. But, this gives us so much of an upper hand over everyone. It's actually a good thing that I put Kakashi, Shikamaru, and now Haku-chan on your team. Because all of them have blood relations to you. Team 7 could become the first team that needs no verbal communication whatsoever. I need to know how long this link has been set up for. About 4 years or so. Just before those Iwa Nins came, that's when I discovered I could use it, he responded. Hiruzen glared at his fictitious grandson. And why did you withhold this information from me for 4 years, Naruto? The Sandame's tone was semi-harsh, and Naruto shrank back. He bowed his head low in apology, saying, I didn't know how you would react to that particular ability. It was because at that time you were just getting used to the idea that I was in full contact with the Kyuubi. Hiruzen's eyes grew softer. Next time, don't not tell me these things, okay Naruto. Thousands of women fawned over Naruto when he flashed his father's famous smile. Hiruzen was shocked by how much he resembled Minato at that precise moment. I promise, I won't. He was quite interested in what the ice-wielding daughter of Zabuza could accomplish, so he said, well then, one last thing before you go. Honestly, how do you think Haku-chan's abilities compare to your own? The boy, who was blonde, grinned. Oji-chan, as an individual, she's about the same level as us. But together, we are going to be unstoppable. Just wait till the Chunin exams, we're going to show the world exactly who we are. Sarutobi and Iruka grinned at the assurance in his voice. All they could do was wait and see. Ja.ne, Gigi, Iruka-sensei, I'll see you guys later. I really want to show Haku-chan around Konoha, though Shikamaru might have beat me to it. Speaking of those two, I wasn't kidding when I said that Haku should be with him. I mean, I've seen the way he looks at her. Trust me, no one would treat her better than Shika. Just keep that in mind. With that, he disappeared among the leaves. Sarutobi said to no one in particular, I'll have to trust you on that, Naruto. Well come on, Iruka. This paperwork isn't going to complete itself you know. Iruka broke out in perspiration. The old man was supposed to be doing this, but he gave it to the young Chunin instead. Iruka hurried to stop a pile of papers from falling. Hi, Sandame. Sama. Asuma had just finished showing the vacant apartment to Haku and Zabuza. It was reasonably priced, and Zabuza had a sizable sum of cash on hand. He and Haku would have some money until they started working. Asuma questioned the two, so, what do you think? Zabuza glanced at Haku and scratched his chin. She gave a nod. We like it. It's roomy enough for two of us, and it's better than any other place that we've had before. All it needs is some furniture and we're set. A bearded Jonin pressed. I'm assuming that you'll take it then? I guess we will. Wow, that's the fastest we've ever done house shopping. Even if we wanted a crappy apartment it always took us days and days. Zabuza was beaming with joy. Great. I guess that means that we're neighbors. I'll go talk to the landlord about the pricing. Till then, feel free to walk around Konoha. Just don't wander off. You should probably get to know everyone here soon. But next to me is Mitarashi Anko, and next to her is Maida Guy. But stay away from Guy when he's in one of his springtime of youth speeches. Asuma sighed. And whatever you do, don't let him make you wear his suits. 2 words. Green spandex. It equals being scarred for life. Zabuza trembled as well. He had heard tales of the green beast of Konoha, He would see him in person now. Even though spandex was terrible, Haku couldn't help but wonder why everyone was pursuing the poor man. Asuma departed to settle into their apartment, saying, "I'll see you guys around then, bye." He would make up for the slight delay in his meeting with Kurenai in a way that would leave a lasting impression. Naruto and Shikamaru showed up immediately after Asuma departed, as if they were in line. "Troublesome," was the word they muttered to themselves as they exchanged glances. Their mental synchronization was eerie. "Well, now that the two of us are here, why don't we show you guys around Konoha some more?" Naruto said. "Sure, why not? I've been dying to see some of the places." Haku was enthusiastic. A few moments later, Asuma was back. "Sorry Zabuza-san, could I borrow you for some time? We need you to sign the deal on the house." Zabuza gave a nod. A few seconds later, he and Asuma vanished, saying, "Looks like I'll go around the village another time, kids." With a shrug, the three children walked slowly into town. Some of the glares directed at Naruto caught Haku's attention. However, he appeared to disregard them, but she also noticed other looks. Some of the girls had lust eyes, and a few people waved at them. They all appeared to glare at Haku when they saw her moving between the two heartthrobs. All of these looks confused her as Naruto and Shikamaru laughed. They appeared to despise her despite the fact that she had done nothing wrong. She instinctively drew nearer to Shikamaru, who was unconcerned by their closeness. Haku believed she caught a glimpse of blue and black hair vanishing behind a pole. Shikamaru said, "Naru, Hinata's stalking you again." Naruto let out a sigh. He felt sorry for the girls sometimes. Even though he was aware of her confidence problems, he still found it extremely annoying that she followed him everywhere every day. It resembled an obsession. "I know Shika, I know." "Hinata. Is she the person hiding behind that pole over there?" Haku inquired. The reason the object of her desire was with this raven. Haired Beauty was not audible to Hinata because she was out of earshot. "Avoid my Naruto-kun at all costs, or I'll murder you, bitch." She obviously lacked the courage to say that aloud. It would sound pitiful. "Yes, ever since I pretended to be the Dobi of the academy, she's been like this. She likes me or something like that." Naruto replied with a smile. Haku continued, "Oh, do you like her back?" Naruto looked at his cousin strangely. "Hell no. What Hinata likes about me, or rather the persona that I played, was that I never gave up on anything, no matter what it took. Now while this is true, I'm not the goofball of a guy that she envisions." Fangirls gaped at the girl's sheer audacity as Haku accepted her cousin's response with ease and hooked both of her arms through the boys. Hinata almost passed out at that moment. "So, what say you boys take me to this ramen place that Shika told me about last night?" Shikamaru flushed at his abbreviated name, and Naruto laughed. To the surprise of the curious bystanders, Naruto yelled, "To Ichiraku's we go," and the three shut up. When two of Tuchi's favorite clients and a raven beauty suddenly materialized in a whirl of leaves, Tuchi almost got a scare. "Boys, please don't do that. My heart is bad as it is. Let's not stress it out too much now." The two boys made the same motions as they rubbed the backs of their heads. Gomen, but we just got back from a long mission, and Haku-chan here wanted to see this place," Naruto clarified. Tuchi chuckled, "Oh. Ho. Haku-chan, eh? So who exactly is this lovely lady?" Just then, Ayame had also joined them. "She's my cousin, don't get any weird ideas, old man," Naruto said with a frown. Tuchi and Ayame blinked in shock. "A cousin? Did Naruto have more relatives?" Tuchi asked the girl, who was observing her surroundings. "I see. So what's your name, darling?" She really enjoys the small stand's warm and welcoming atmosphere. "Huh? Oh, sorry. My name is Uzumaki Haku. It's a pleasure to meet you." Tuchi smiled. "Another Uzumaki, huh? Yes, this was ideal for business purposes. Everyone who knew the Uzumaki clan was aware of their ravenous appetites. Nice to meet you, Haku-chan. I'm Tuchi, and this is my daughter Ayame." The girl's voice almost made Ayame squeal. It was angelic, boy. She was also very feminine and gorgeous. Together, they were going to have a great time. Ayame questioned the girl, "So Haku-chan, are you a civilian or a ninja?" She pointed to the two men on either side of her and said, "I'm a ninja, actually, I'm on their team." Naruto's stomach decided to let out a loud moan at that precise moment. Ayame.Nay. You and Haku-chan can talk later about girly things, but right now all of us are damn hungry. Haku let out a sigh. When Naruto was hungry, she resembled her father almost exactly. It was really annoying. Tuchi laughed. "Alright Naruto, what would you like to have?" "Yosh. I want a bowl of miso ramen," a beef ramen, a chicken ramen, and a vegetable ramen. Well done, child. We'll both be satisfied this way. In the back of Naruto's mind, Kyuubi spoke. I know, don't you think? And you, Haku-chan? What will you have? Haku took a close look at the menu. I'll have a large chicken ramen. Okay then, and you Shikamaru? TCH, I guess I'll have the beef ramen then. Good, just give me a few minutes, and your orders will be right with you. As Tucci and Ayame prepared the ramen, Haku observed. Although she had tried the food a few times, she had never been particularly fond of it. Maybe that would change today, though. Haku-chan, just you wait, it'll be the best ramen you've ever had. Naruto gasped. His mouth began to water. For him, going nearly 2 weeks without ramen was a horrible experience. Shikamaru exchanged a glance with Haku and sighed. His cousin remained the same. After 10 minutes, they were presented with steaming dishes. Without delay, Naruto shattered his chopsticks and began to eat. Shikamaru slurped up some noodles while he was being lazy. After observing the two boys eat, Haku made the decision to follow suit. In addition to being extremely hungry, it smelled really good. She carefully picked up a piece of chicken and some noodles after separating the two pieces of wood. Suddenly she was the center of attention. With hesitation, she placed the food in her mouth and took a swallow. She moaned with pleasure as soon as the food was in her mouth. She eagerly slurped up more noodles, oblivious to the stares she was receiving from people in the stand. Oh my. Kami. This has to be the best food in the world, she exclaimed. Tucci, Naruto, and Ayame were all grinning. Naruto smiled and said, see, you just had to give it a chance. Shikamaru merely gazed. At least she's attractive, but she's not just another ramen maniac. Did you hear that groan, after all? Kami. Sama. Tucci-san. One more please. Haku shouted, tilting her empty bowl in the man's direction. Naruto looked at her in awe. Before him, how was she done? He was still not done with his first bowl. In addition, she had a big bowl. Tucci grinned to himself. Compared to Uzumaki males, the females were always more hungry for ramen. Undoubtedly, his business had just tripled. Your wish is my command, my lady. Haku disregarded Naruto's startled look. What, did you think that I'm a dainty woman who doesn't eat anything? Hell no, when I eat, I eat. Naruto grinned. You know, I'm liking you more and more every day, cousin. Everyone's tabs had been paid after 30 minutes. Haku had consumed 7 large bowls in all. Shikamaru had consumed 4 meals, while Naruto had consumed 15. Tucci inherited a fortune. He had called out as they were leaving, come back anytime you want Haku-chan, instead. The three of them were now strolling around Konoha. She was being shown random locations by Shikamaru and Naruto, such as the training grounds or the spot where they had first broken bones. Many Jonin were now aware that Zabuza had been inducted as a Konoha Jonin. Additionally, they discovered that his name was Uzumaki, and they had frequently visited Naruto to inquire about what it was like to have Zabuza as an uncle. Since Haku was his daughter, Naruto replied that they should ask her. The glint in Haku's eyes made the shinobi shudder. There was another Uzumaki in town, and if you said anything negative about Zabuza or even Naruto and Shikamaru, she would kick your ass. Many of you are probably wondering what happened to our beloved pink-haired Banshee. Well, let me explain. Her parents had been incensed at her, not the Sandame, after she had explained to them the precise reason she had been kicked off her team. When the Sandame asked why she hadn't contributed to the team, she replied that it was because the tasks were too manly for her. They were so gracious as to send a letter outlining her reasons for leaving Team 7. Since her parents were civilians, Sakura reasoned that they would understand why a girl shouldn't have been performing those tasks. Oh no, it was actually the exact opposite. The way her daughter behaved disgusted her civilian parents. She was still a shinobi, though. Sakura had assured her parents she would put in a lot of training and rise through the ranks. The girl was currently picking up kunai from the neighborhood gun shop while strolling around the town. You can only imagine how shocked she was when 2 of her least favorite individuals entered the store with an unidentified girl. She watched them with emerald eyes while hiding in a corner. They appear to have come back from their mission. Ah, Naruto and Shikamaru. It's been a while since I last saw you two, and who is this lovely lady with you today? The proprietor asked the boys. Konnichiwa, Saito-san. Indeed, it has been quite a while. This here is my cousin, Uzumaki Haku. We were hoping if those kunai that we ordered a couple weeks ago have arrived, and I think Haku-chan wants to buy some more senbon needles. Naruto replied to the man. Saito's eyebrows went up. Cousin A. Interesting. And yes, Naruto, your kunai have arrived. Shikamaru, and you can go in the back and bring it here. It's a big box marked, Nara, so you can't miss it. Meanwhile, I'll show Miss Haku here why Konoha has the best senbon in all of the elemental nations. Haku let out a laugh and let the man pull her away. Shikamaru and Naruto went outside to the storage area. Sakura fixed her gaze on the girl Naruto had presented as his cousin. Why was she so good while Sakura wasn't? Yes, exactly. Sakura wasn't a kunoichi in the true sense. She looked at the hands of Haku. They had some fading bruises and were calloused. There was not a nail at all because the girl's nails were clipped. She then turned to face her hands. Her hands were as soft as a baby's bosom, and her nails were flawlessly manicured. They weren't kunoichi hands. They were civilian hands. But she refused to let her own problems consume her. She was interested in hearing more of the discussion. Saito-san, these senbon are rather short. Do you have some longer ones perhaps? And maybe some clear ones instead of those gray ones. For the techniques I use, clear is always better. Techniques, muttering Sakura thought. I don't have any methods. How am I going to get noticed by Sasuke-kun? Why indeed we do. If you would come this way please. Ah yes. I believe this is what you are looking for. Excellent. These will be perfect Saito-san. I'll need quite a few though. Heck, I made a stock you, Haku said. The man chuckled. Well then, it's fine with me. Oh, looks like Naruto and Shikamaru are back. Shikamaru said, yes we are. And those kunai were excellent. Just put everything, including whatever Haku-chan bought or is going to buy on the Nara tab. Haku reprimanded, Shika-kun, I can pay for it myself you know. Shikamaru replied, hi, demo you're new in Konoha, so think of it as your welcome gift. Saito turned to her and asked, so Haku-san, are you a new genin as well? While holding her senbon bag. Yes, I am. I believe I am the newest member of Team 7 under Kakashi.ni.san with Naruto and Shikamaru. I heard that their other team member was kicked out, so the Sandame decided I would be her replacement. Sakura's heart ceased beating. Was she her stand.in? A cousin of Naruto? Furthermore, where did she come from and when did this occur? Here, the Sandame was obviously being unjust. Sakura felt like crying now. Saito put his hands on his chin after nodding. Oh really? Well actually I was hearing rumors about how the other girl was not doing her part on the team, so I suppose it doesn't come as that big of a surprise. In fact, I think the girl came in before you guys. Sakura was her name, right? Yeah, and to tell you the truth, we're all glad that she's gone. I mean, Naruto here had to pretend to have a crush on her in the academy, and that was bad enough. Then she was put on our team, but she really didn't fit in too well. Even Kaka.ni was relieved when Gigi said that she was no longer on the team. Shikamaru continued. A shinobi must be able to do his or her part in the field. If they can't do that, then they shouldn't be a ninja in the first place. Saito mused philosophically. Sakura covered the sobs that threatened to burst out of her mouth with her hand. Why? Why did even her sensei believe that they would be better off without her? In the first place, why did those three know him so well? She needed the answers immediately, and Naruto and the others had promised to explain everything to her. As the door shut, Sakura heard Naruto say, Ja.ne. Saito.san. We'll come back another time. Saito retorted, come back soon, you three. I have to restock my senbon collection already. She wasn't lying when she said she might clean me out. When Saito was in the back, Sakura couldn't stand it any longer and ran out of the store. She needed to return home where there was safety because the slandering of her name was starting to affect her. Haku exclaimed with joy, I'm so happy that my senbon collection was replenished. But still Shika.kun, I think I should have paid for it myself, she sighed. Haku-chan, as I mentioned earlier, it's your first time here, so please think of it as a welcome present, Shikamaru said, swallowing when he saw that cute pout. Then she complained, fine, but I'm going to treat you to something next time, no arguments allowed. Naruto smiled at their lighthearted conversation. This was a very positive sign of things to come. They then showed her the affluent parts of Konoha, where their complex was located. When Haku met with Shikaku and Yoshino, the patriarch and matriarch of the Nara, they invited her to dinner that night. Yoshino and Haku clicked immediately, and they started talking about how to keep men in line together. To put it mildly, the three men in the room drew slowly away before the women could reach them. They also showed her the location of the Senju complex and the old Namikaze complex. Later, Choji and Ino emerged from their complexes to give her a tour as well. Overall, Haku had spent the day meeting almost every significant clan. 5 o'clock the Jonin complex. As they traveled to the Jonin meeting spot, Asuma said to the burly man, Zabuza-san, I think that Konoha will be brilliant for someone like you. Right behind them, with his nose deep in his grand uncle's book, was Kakashi. He wasn't really reading the book today. Instead, he was searching for things to test out with his attractive viper. They had already read roughly half of the book, but Jiraiya had written about so many brilliant concepts. They could not be thrown away. In jest, Zabuza asked the bearded Jonin, oh, and why is that? He had grown to respect the man more and more during their time together. Asuma had essentially found him a place to stay, but he wasn't sure that a place would meet his needs, regardless of how wonderful Asuma claimed it could be. Asuma was practically jumping up and down as he told Zabuza about Konoha's greatness. Well, for starters, there are many missions that you can take, so you'll never be bored. The women here are top notch. There's excellent sake and bars all around the place. And so much more, he said. In what Asuma assumed was a smile, Zabuza flashed his sharp teeth at the man. Both the old clothes he wore and the wrappings around his face were gone. He had eschewed those in favor of the traditional shinobi pants and a more functional navy blue undershirt. In addition, he was wearing the green Jonin vest with the Uzumaki spiral on the back and his new Konoha headband around his forehead. Is that so? Well then that's not too bad, is it? Asuma seemed to be thinking deeply as he scratched his beard. You know, there's a kunoichi named Mitarashi Anko, and her personality is damn similar to yours. You guys might hit it off nicely. Kakashi's book closed abruptly. Zabuza paused, looked at the younger man, and then shook his head. Really, Mitarashi Anko, you said? It's a name that I'll have to keep in mind. After giving Kakashi a quick glance, Asuma smiled. All he wanted to do was annoy the man more. Think of it as retaliation for Kakashi torturing him as a child. The only change to Kakashi's normally detached expression was that he was trembling a little. The only person who could tell the difference would be a highly skilled shinobi. The Jonin complex appeared. Kakashi, Zabuza, and Asuma entered casually. Genma, Raida, Kurenai, Hayate, Yugao, and Enko were among the numerous Jonin who were already present. When the unlikely trio entered, they all got to their feet. Genma whispered to Hayate, whoa, so that's Uzumaki Zabuza, eh? Hayate was shocked when Zabuza approached him directly. Are you Gecko Hayate? With a hint of fear in his voice, he said, yeah. Why? Cough. Cough. Sir, is something. Cough. The matter? The other Jonin gave the two of them a curious glance. No. It's just that when Naruto, my nephew, was fighting, he used his sword. I've studied sword styles for many years now, and I believe he used Mikazuki no Mai, which is a Gecko clan style. Zabuza clarified for the ill Jonin. Jonin's shoulders loosened as he spoke. He was tensing them without even realizing it. Yes, Naruto did learn under me for some time. I would have taught Shikamaru too, but the boy said that using swords was too troublesome. And the two began discussing everything from the newest Icha to swordsmanship. Yes, every Konoha man was a pervert. The females, however, were even larger, which was unexpected. Speaking of perverts, the most vicious couple on the planet stood directly next to one another, pretending to be interested in what Zabuza and Hayate were saying. Anko growled at the masked Jonin, why didn't you come to me when you were done with your meeting? Guy wanted me to check something out with him, but I didn't have time. Kakashi whispered back, and you know Guy, he's impossible to avoid once he wants something from you. Asuma broke off their conversation and dragged Zabuza over to the others, saying, Zabuza-san. Now that you've met Hayate, these are the other Jonin of the village. Zabuza glanced at the man with the senbon in his mouth and said, this here is Genma. He's a great guy, just don't get him drunk, because he tends to destroy things. That was a little risky, wasn't it? Zabuza and the others stared at the man in bewilderment. Nice to meet you, Zabuza-san. We've actually met before, but I was a Chunin back then. In fact, it was in Kiri, and you helped me escape from someone. Zabuza then recalled. Oh, you were the brat who decided to come into Kiri wearing your Konoha headband. That wasn't exactly the smartest thing to do, you know. Kiri hated Konoha back then. Genma twirled the senbon in his mouth a few more times and rubbed the back of his head. Whoops. Asuma went on, anyway, this is Raida, and this is Yugao. Zabuza nodded to the woman and man. They appeared to be decent individuals. However, Konoha had strange hair of purple, perhaps? Kurenai shook hands with Zabuza and said, this is Kurenai, she's also a Jonin sensei. You saw her in the Hokage's office before. Zabuza's gaze captivated him. He had never seen eyes that color before. Ruby. Anko looked at Asuma incredulously and was even more shocked by Kakashi's growl. "Oh. And this is the lovely Mitarashi Anko that I was talking about before," Anko said. "What on earth?" Zabuza gave the woman a funny look. Now he understood Kakashi's excessive protectiveness of the girl. She wore a trenchcoat over her fishnet and nothing underneath. Konoha was the village that would win for having the most unusual attire. Kakashi put an arm over Anko's shoulder as he scooted closer to her side. Everyone looked in their direction. He spat out at Asuma. "Hitaki Anko. Her name is Hitaki Anko." Genma's senbon fell to the ground. Yugao let out a burp. Hayate occasionally forgot to cough. Kurenai attempted a genjutsu dispel. Asuma choked while smoking a cigarette. Anko gave a squawk. Zabuza merely observed with amusement. "My eternal rival has gotten married to the lovely and youthful Anko. Why did you not tell me, Kakashi? Where was the wedding? Was the cake nice? Oh, why have you left me out of this youthful circle, my comrades?" Guide chose this time of year to appear. He seemed to have listened to Kakashi's words. But then the whole complex had. Yugao croaked. Kakashi and Anko. Married? Hoping she wouldn't get any ideas. Hayate slowly moved away from her. The happy couple was asked by Kurenai, for how long Kakashi? Without missing a beat, Kakashi answered, 2 years now, and we're expecting a third Hitaki on the way. So Asuma, that's the reason why I've been with her at her apartment. It's because she's going to be the mother of my child. The S-ranked nin retreated from Asuma. His hands were out in front of him in case Kakashi attacked. "Whoa man, I'm sorry, I didn't know that you and Anko were like that," he said. "Kakashi." Anko muttered ominously to the man. He swallowed. "Whoa, did he actually say that aloud?" She shouted the final line so that everyone could hear it. "When exactly were you going to tell me about this? We're expecting children now? And we were married for 2 years? Then where was I when we got married, you idiot?" "Wait." Kakashi told a lie. The copy.ninja hid behind Zabuza, and the other Jonins watched in utter laughter. The silver-haired fool hurriedly remarked, "Hey, well, to defend myself, I was thinking of marrying you 2 years ago. And one day you will be the mother of my children. So it'll be true." The smaller man was lifted by Zabuza and placed in front of Anko. This was a dilemma for him. The Hitaki Kakashi that the world was familiar with was not awkward or envious. Rather, he was stoic and heartless. Anko growled, "We need to talk now." Instead, a jab in the gut was used to emphasize each word. She would have kicked him in the nuts, but she didn't want to ruin those because she would need them later. Kakashi was shushed out of the room by Anko, who took him by the ear. The rest of the Jonins fell into an awkward silence. Asuma chuckled uneasily. "Well, so you've already met Kakashi." Not only was Kakashi occasionally foolish, but he was consistently foolish. He just did a great job of hiding it. The bearded Jonin caught Zabuza's attention. "You know what, Asuma-san, I think Konoha will be brilliant for me." The following 2 weeks went by without any problems. Zabuza and Haku blend in perfectly, mixing with the ninja and having a decent relationship with some of the civilians. The fact that Momochi Zabuza, an S-ranked ninja, was actually Uzumaki Zabuza and the uncle of their resident ex. Uzumaki shocked almost everyone. There had been a slight decline in the relationship between Kakashi and Anko. Anko only wished that Kakashi would be more like the Hitaki Kakashi she knew and stop behaving like a jealous idiot. He desired her approval. You could feel the tension between them, of course. The dynamic between Haku, Shikamaru, and Naruto was perfect for a true team. Since each of them was aware of their own advantages and disadvantages, teamwork was clearly not a problem. Haku was able to understand Shikamaru and Naruto's fighting style after just a few missions. Due to their shared Nara ancestry, one would incapacitate the opponent while the other would trap them. It wasn't difficult to adapt now that Haku was involved. Like them, Haku fought by staying hidden and fighting from the shadows. They would make an excellent assassination team, the Sandaime had decided. Haku's ice mirrors were an excellent method of quickly trapping and eliminating the enemy. The Sandaime could easily see that these three were at least Chunins and not Genin level. However, since Konoha was not during a war, the days of field promotion were over. Regretfully, the children were required to undergo the Chunin exams. The Sandaime had gathered the Jonin senseis in his office at this very moment for that reason. The nominations for the Chunin exam were due soon. The Sandaime cast a critical glance at everyone in his room. "You know why you're here. Let's get on with it. The Chunin exams start in exactly 2 weeks. If you think that your team has what it takes to compete in the exams, then step forward," the elderly gentleman ordered. Kakashi moved forward in a matter of nanoseconds. Kakashi was so certain that he told his leader, "I Hitaki Kakashi, leader of Team 7, nominate Uzumaki Haku, Nara Shikamaru, and Nara Naruto. Sandame. Sama, you know full that those three are not Genin level. They have already proved that they have what it takes to be Chunin. The elderly man was curious to see what exactly they could accomplish. Indeed I do, Kakashi. Indeed I do. Who else? Asuma also took a step forward. Sarutobi Asuma, leader of Team 10, nominate Yamanaka Ino, Akamichi Choji, and Aburame Shino. They have shown maturity beyond their years and have the mentality and skill of a Chunin. The fact that only the rookies were being admitted worried a few of the other Jonins in attendance. In the background, Guy was thinking about the decisions made by his fellow shinobi. It was true that, among the rookie teams, Teams 7 and 10 were most likely the most developed. Guy had been raising his 3 young Genins for a year or so, but they had not yet killed anyone. Additionally, Kurenai's team was respectable, but there were rifts in the team dynamic because the Uchiha boy constantly attempted to take charge. Guy thought for a moment, then spoke too. I made a Guy, leader of Team Guy, nominate Rock Lee, Hyuga Neji, and Tenten. Out of all the teams here, my team has the most experience, though none have killed yet. I believe that they are ready for promotion, he said with assurance. There were murmurs and titters in the crowd. Kurenai finally joined in. Sandame. Sama. Ayuahi Kurenai, leader of Team 8, nominate Hyuga Hinata, Inazuka Kiba, and Uchiha Sasuke for the exams. It will be a good way to test their skills out. At that moment, Iruka essentially had a heart attack. Hang on, Sandame. Sama. You don't really intend to send 12 rookies into those exams, do you? People can die there. And I mean, some of them might be ready but others. Iruka. The Sandame interrupted him quickly. The decision is not yours to make. If their senseis feel that they are competent, I will trust their judgment. With a reluctant nod, the scarred Chunin returned to his position. The Sandame was about to speak again when he cleared his throat. There is another reason as to why you are here. A few weeks ago, the Genin known as Nara Naruto was given the mission by me to find out why Mizuki wanted to steal the scroll of sealing. Naruto confirmed that he was going to give it to Orochimaru. Naruto also told me that Mizuki had gone to a village by the name of Otogakure for diplomatic negotiations that eventually failed. Mizuki was reported to have odd behavior after that. Jiraiya's spy network recently found out that Orochimaru is indeed the Cage of Sound. Konoha is going to buckle down on its security right now. We will go into our wartime defensive measures. The Sandame paused to take in the grim and the expressions of fright. He spoke again, and his voice became cold. There is a very good chance that Orochimaru will be in Konoha during the Chunin exams. Don't inform the Genin as of yet. We need to seize how this plays out. Remember, be on your guard. Trust no foreign village, even our allies. We need to prepare for war. Hiruzen was tired of sitting down. That is all. You are dismissed. With the fear of another war looming, the shinobis quickly disappeared. The Sandame gazed out the large window at the village, left to his own thoughts. What have you become, Orochimaru? On the training grounds, our 3 favorite Genin were presently awaiting Kakashi. Shikamaru was beating Naruto in a game of shogi that they were playing together. Shikamaru's Nara brain was superior to Naruto's in terms of strategy. However, Naruto's sheer endurance made him far more powerful in terms of raw strength. Overall, they were a well-balanced duo. Haku had requested to watch the 2 boys play shogi. In shogi, strategy was the only thing that mattered. Haku wanted to test her ability to foresee their next course of action. It would enable her to plan ahead and predict the enemy's next move on the battlefield. Naruto abruptly raised his head. He gestured to the person coming toward them and said, "We have a guest, guys." There was a mop of pink hair that Shikamaru could clearly see. He let out a sigh. She most likely came for answers after hearing what was happening. He felt a little sorry for the girl. Sakura approached them with careful strides. She paused before the 3 of them and gazed at them for a long time. At last, she said, "I need some clarification." Shikamaru and Naruto sighed, anticipating this. Assuming that this was their former teammate, Haku just watched. With a weary voice that made him sound more like an elderly man than a teenager, Naruto said, "We realize we haven't been completely honest with you, and that might have affected you. What do you want to know, Haruno-san?" Quietly, she replied, "I just want to know why you change." "We never change. We were always like this. It's just that people don't bother to look underneath the underneath anymore, and they never saw either of our masks. Hell, Naruto wore genjutsu since our academy days, and no one commented on it. Naruto never had a crush on you, he was never an idiot, and neither was I. He's always had our bloodline. And we've always lived in the same house ever since we were born. What more do you need to know? Shikamaru responded with an air of laziness. Sakura didn't say anything as she processed the brunette's words. Sakura knew there was more to it than that. Something significant, possibly a secret. She began quietly, I heard you today. Sakura pointed to Haku and remarked, in the store. I heard how that person over there is your cousin, and how she's going to be replacing me. Shikamaru and Naruto exchanged looks. Naruto gazed pityingly at the girl before him. Listen, I'm sorry, okay. I'm sorry that we didn't tell you every detail of our lives. We didn't act like teammates, and frankly, we made a crappy team. But can you honestly refute anything we said today? Can you call yourself a team player when you hated both of our guts and wanted nothing to do with us? We gave you a chance. You never took it. His voice remained unchanged, and even Sakura noticed an expression on his face. She knew the truth and remained silent for a while, never responding to Naruto's inquiries. Her pig-headedness was the only thing standing in the way. Who is Kakashi? Sensei to you. That's my final question. Then I suppose I'll leave you three alone. Straightforwardly, Shikamaru said, he's our cousin. Sakura's emerald eyes briefly widened. There was obviously a problem here. This team was made up entirely of family members, even though it was forbidden for family members to be on the same team. But she gave a nod. It would account for the intimacy she had sensed between them all. She gave the three a stiff formal bow, which they returned, and then immediately turned on her heel and marched forward without turning around. I see. You have given me quite a bit to think about. I'll take my leave now. Behind them, a voice said, well, that went well. Without glancing at his cousin with the silver hair, Shikamaru questioned, Kaka.ni. Why do you always have the urge to sneak up behind people? Kakashi emerged before them, grinning his usual eye smile. He cheekily retorted, well, you know. It's in my blood, coming out of the shadows and all. Shogi was forgotten as the three of them merely sighed and settled down on the grass. Haku looked at her imaginary watch and asked, so, why have you decided to grace us with your presence so early? It's only an hour since the time you told us to be here. Kakashi held up three forms and said to his three cousins, Mama Haku. Chan, don't be so mean to me. I was late because all the Jonin senseis had a meeting with the Sandame. The Chunin exams start soon. At this, all three became alert. Naruto asked incredulously, seriously? Kakashi just gave a nod. They begin in a week and I am 500% sure that you three already have the skills to be Chunin. He appears to be saying, what the hell did you think otherwise, after the three-shot? Right, so that's why I called you here today. There's no training. Kakashi sighed. Besides, I need to go somewhere. With half curiosity and half sympathy, Shikamaru questioned, is Anko Chan still made about what happened a couple weeks ago? Someone Akaga Gyakaga had revealed Kakashi's error. Needless to say, he became the object of many women's affections after his image was essentially transformed into that of a man in love. To put it mildly, Enko was furious with him. A woman could only take so much from her overly protective and jealous boyfriend. To win her back, Kakashi would need to put in a lot of effort. Kakashi complained and shushed out of the room, saying, shut up Shika. Naruto laughed. With hope, he said, so, what say us three hit the ramen stands? Before any of the boys could speak, Haku grabbed both of them and hurried to the ramen stand. Ooh, ramen. Let's go, he exclaimed. I sigh. The women of Uzumaki were simply too disruptive. 0.0.0. After a few minutes, they were strolling leisurely through the village. Apart from the occasional glare directed at Naruto, the walk was quite peaceful, that is, if you didn't pay attention to the piece of wood that kept laughing and following them. Naruto nodded and smiled as Shikamaru nudged him. He approached the moving wooden object. Man, do I have to pee or what? No one's around here, so I think I'll take a piss right here. On this wooden fence. He yelled. To give the impression that he was acting, he even unzipped his pants. The wooden fence shook, and he grinned. Oh yeah, it's going to come out now. In the background, Shikamaru and Haku were laughing. The wood suddenly changed into three children encircled by smoke clouds. Naruto heard someone cough. The boy was chastised by a female voice. You used too much smoke, Konohamaru. Sorry, said a second, somewhat male voice. Three children, a two male and one female, were visible when the smoke cleared. In addition to his light gray, blue pants, the lead boy, Konohamaru, wore a yellow shirt with the Konoha symbol on it. He wore Naruto's goggles, which had once belonged to Uchiha Obito, on his head. In addition to wearing her goggles on her head, the girl to his right with the two orange pigtails sticking out had also adopted Konohamaru's fashion sense. The last boy's nose was leaking phlegm. He was by far the most unassuming of them all, and he wore enormous glasses. The young man named Udon said to him, "Konohamaru, don't you want to say it?" Konohamaru shook his head, but Moegi nodded enthusiastically. "What's the point, ni? Chan already figured us out. See, Hakune. Chan and Shika ni. Chan are laughing at us in the background." The Sarutobi responded with sadness. The brunette's hair was ruffled by Naruto. Naruto boasted, "Don't feel bad. I sensed you following me only because I'm an awesome ninja," until Haku gave him a head rap. "Itai. Haku. Chan." Haku yelled, "Baka. Konohamaru. Chan. Moegi. Chan. Udon. Chan. I'll show you how to properly use this cloak of invisibility so that Naru.kun over there won't be able to sense you." And he and the glittering-eyed kids left. Then, in a whirl of snowflakes, she shushed the three of them away. Shikamaru and Naruto watched them go. Naruto grimaced and rubbed his aching head, saying, "Damn, that woman can hit hard." He moaned to himself, "Why is it always me, and never you?" Shika answered, "Maybe because I'm less troublesome than you." Naruto cleverly replied, "Or maybe she doesn't want to damage her future husband too much." When Shikamaru turned red and left Naruto, muttering something indescriptible, he smiled. In a split second, Naruto caught up to Shikamaru, and the two of them slowly followed Haku's chakra. Suddenly, Naruto's muscles stiffened. He stopped walking and looked around. Shikamaru turned to look at Naruto's peculiar actions. "Is everything okay?" Naruto ordered, "Not sure. Come on, let's go find Haku." And quickly. Shikamaru followed his cousin's instructions despite raising his eyebrows at him. Naruto couldn't get rid of this feeling the entire way there. It wasn't one of fear, but rather of excitement and nostalgia. "Hello, will something happen?" Naruto questioned his renter. "I believe you will be pleasantly surprised if you wait to see Kit." In his mind, Kyuubi told him. Naruto became even more interested in finding out what it was as a result. Naruto whispered to his cousin, "Shika. Haku and the kids, they're over there. By the main gates, and they're not alone." Turning, Shikamaru faced the gates. In fact, 3 unidentified ninja were in front of Haku and the 3 academy students as they stood at the gates. Naruto feared for his cousin and the children because the 3 appeared somewhat menacing. Conversely, though, the sense of nostalgia almost tripled. In the background, he could hear Kyuubi laughing. With a swift gesture, the pair vanished and resurfaced directly in front of Haku and the children. Naruto said, "Haku, stand back." Taking the 3 frightened kids with her, she obeyed. They observed from afar. Naruto and Shikamaru surveyed the 3 ninja. It was obvious that the one in the middle, the shortest, was the most frightening. He had a tattoo of love on his forehead and blood-red hair. His eyes had black rims around them and were swollen, as if he had trouble sleeping. He had a gourd strapped to his back and was dressed in red as well. The next was a blonde girl whose hair was almost Naruto's color. 4 ponytails were pulled up. She was dressed in light lavender pants and a shirt. There was a huge fan on her back. If the fan was any indication, she was probably a wind user. The tallest of all the boys was the last one. He appeared, to put it mildly, mad. He had something bandaged on his back and was dressed entirely in black, including a black headpiece. Most likely a puppet user. Was his face covered in makeup? With a battle stance, Naruto yelled, "State your business in Konoha." The young lady sighed. She glanced at Naruto a few times and said, "Geez, we're here for the Chunin exams. There's no need to be so cold. Wouldn't she like to know that Konoha appeared to breed fine species of men? A fine piece of meat, too." Was the brunette next to the blonde. Which would she start with? Naruto loosened up a bit. The Chunin tests now made sense. These appeared to be the first group of foreigners arriving here. From behind them, Konohamaru exclaimed, "Naruto ni. Chan, I ran into the makeup guy and he threatened to kill me. Then Hakune. Chan saved me." At the boy wearing the absurdly long scarf, Kankuro snarled. Naruto looked at the makeup artist. Kankuro swallowed. It was full of murderous intent. "You dare threaten to kill an academy student? Do you know who he is? He is the grandson of the Hokage. I suggest, for your own safety, you never come near him again." Naruto yelled. Kankuro trembled a little. Well, at least he hadn't killed the brat back then. Gaara gave Naruto a questioning glance. He felt so much like himself, or more accurately, like his mother. "Is this boy the one, mother?" "Yes, Gaara, he is the Lord's container. Never underestimate him, and you will never engage in combat with him. You get it?" The Tanuki gave an order. Gaara gave a mental nod. So this was the Kyuubi's ship? Gaara sensed the power radiating from the blonde. He exuded self-assurance and leadership. The blonde's eyes narrowed as she examined each one, her blue eyes like ice. Naruto was thinking the same thing. The redhead reminded me of a long, lost brother. He did have red hair, as most Uzumakis did, but that was not possible. Who's this Q.Ni guy? He serves as my subordinate's container, also known as the Ichibi or Shukaku. Kyuubi smiled. In a way, this reunion was pleasant. Naruto looked at the redhead again, gasping. Was he a Jinchuriki, too? When Gaara noticed Naruto's response, he smiled slightly, which frightened the kids even more. It seems as though you have noticed. Even Shikamaru looked at Gaara in bewilderment. Naturally, though, the brilliant Nara figured it out in a matter of seconds. Naruto said courteously, "Indeed I have. May I have your name?" To the redhead. The blonde was regarded as if he had a second head by Gaara's siblings. "Sabaku no Gaara," he said stiffly, not accustomed to having someone from outside his family speak to him in such a natural way. "These are my brother and sister, Tamari and Kankuro. We are the children of the Kazekage." Oh no, there would have been another global conflict if Naruto and company had engaged in combat with the siblings. Naruto turned around, looked at the tree next to them, approached it, and kicked it a few times before saying, "Gaara, it seems like we shall meet again very soon." Nobody made a comment about his action. He picked up Konohamaru as he passed him and said, "Come on guys, let's leave the nice Suna people to themselves. We don't want to bother them anymore." After a while of staring at his cousin, Shikamaru shrugged and trailed behind him, throwing a random shuriken at the tree next to him. Alone with their eyes, the three Sand siblings watched the Konoha ninjas retreating backs. Kankuro snorted. Those idiots should know never to turn their backs on an enemy. They don't consider us enemies. That's why. If you attack them, I'll never forgive you, Gaara said quietly. Surprised, his two siblings turned to face their youngest brother. Tamari waved her hands and said, "But why, I mean?" With a spooky smile on his face, Gaara said simply, "Because I do not want to upset him." He strode forward, his eyes darting to the tree. Tamari and Kankuro exchanged glances as they both wondered the same thing. Who was he? And why was that tree so fascinating? Three people, each wearing a headband with a musical note on it, were resting in the tree. A shuriken that had lodged itself in a branch had just been avoided by one of the individuals. Someone remarked casually, "They're good." With a hint of fear, a woman said, "They sensed us here." Orochimaru. Sama said not to worry about them, but I'm not so sure. Something's off. We completely suppressed our chakra. No genin should be able to sense us. We have to keep an eye out on them, all of them. Another man's voice was authoritative. They swiftly left the tree to report to their master after descending. He was not going to have much joy. After they dropped the kids off at the academy, Haku asked him, "Naruto, what was that about?" Iruka wasn't pleased with them because, as it turned out, they had skipped class. Naruto told the raven, "The kid with the red hair is like me. He has the Shukaku sealed inside of him." Haku gave a little gasp before gathering her thoughts. She had no idea that Naruto was not the only person like him in the world. After noticing this, Shikamaru made the decision to explain. There are 9 Biju or tailed beasts in the world. Each hidden village has its own Jinchuriki, maybe more than one. In Konoha, the Kyuubi has been sealed in the Uzumaki family for 3 generations now. Shukaku is in Suna. I know for a fact that Kumo has 2 beasts, and Kiri must have some as well. The life of a Jinchuriki is not nice. We are supposed to be human sacrifices, weapons. But that isn't true. We're still human, even if we have monsters sealed inside of us. Gaara understands this. I can see it in his eyes. He accepts himself for who he is, for what he is. I'm sure he's lived a tougher life than I have. But that's why we are strong. Everyone wants us to fail, to die. Because of this, we are forced to grow up quickly, forced to relinquish our childhood. When we meet someone like us, it can be either good or bad. I'm sure Gaara will want to meet with me soon, and I'm actually looking forward to it. Me and him, we're brothers by circumstance. We need to stick together. Naruto added quietly, his hands in his pockets, his put their heads down. Shikamaru and Haku thought about what he had said in silence. It was accurate. Even though they had no other option, Jinchuriki were despised and despised for what they carried. When a Jinchuriki is killed, the Biju is expelled from their body, reoccurring in a manner similar to the Kyuubi attack. However, that side was never seen. The idea that the Biju would also perish if a Jinchuriki was killed. Haku wrapped the blonde's shoulder with one arm. Naru, you're not strong because you're a Jinchuriki. You're strong because you have people that love you, and you want to protect those people. Remember that." He laughed at her. "Of course I know that. I don't need to rely on the red-haired idiot inside of me for everything." "Kid, I hate that. I will never again speak to you," Kyuubi sobbed, feigning tears to stream down his cheeks. "Oh, stop talking. Until I said that, you were asleep. After you informed me that Gaara possessed Shukaku, you disregarded everything we said." Without a response, Kyuubi just fell back asleep and dreamed about snakes and rabbits and how to kill them. Shikamaru's smile was genuine, it wasn't one of his half-smirks. "Let's not talk about such depressing things. The Chunin exams are in a week. We need strategies. Naruto, let's go play some more shogi, and we'll talk." Haku and Naruto both complained at the same time, "What about ramen?" The brunette broke out in a sweat. "Fine, we'll have ramen, then we'll go play shogi." The two cousins simultaneously yelled, "Yada," and ran in Ichiraku's direction. Shikamaru gave a headshake. Without a doubt, Uzumakis were a real pain in the ass. Omake. Naruto and Konohamaru. When Konohamaru was first born, Naruto saw him for the first time. To the disdain of all the Sarutobis, Naruto had asked aloud why the infant appeared to be a hairless rat. However, Konohamaru had matured over time, and to Naruto's amazement, he wasn't a hairless rat after all. Naruto made the decision to train the youngest Sarutobi when Konohamaru was 3 years old, at the age of 7. Naturally, Hiruzen was terrified because Naruto had created the sexy technique, at this time with Jiraiya's assistance. Jiraiya was so furious when Naruto showed her the cage killer, as evidenced by the scars she still had from Tsunade. Konohamaru made the decision that his Naruto ni Chan would become his Oyabun boss when he was approximately 5 years old. At the time, his life's ambition was to discover how Naruto had caused his grandfather to bleed so much with a single technique. After accepting the young Sarutobi as a disciple, Naruto immediately started training him in the Forest of Death. The sexy no jutsu technique was extremely complex and intricate. It involved taking the male perversion and turning it into a material form. Since Kakashi was the second most perverted person in the village, Konohamaru had tried it on him first. Naturally, Konohamaru's attractive no jutsu turned out to be a male, older, and fatter Anko. For the next 3 months, Kakashi was unable to look Anko in the eye without recalling that picture. He had tried it on Ebisu, his perverted private tutor who detested Naruto, the second time. Kurenai had changed significantly from Konohamaru. Kurenai's eyes had turned orange, and her black hair had turned red. It was useless to describe the rest of her body. Fortunately, however, Ebisu developed mental trauma, and spent almost 2 weeks in the hospital. The king of perverts himself, Jiraiya, was the target of the Sarutobi's 17 final attempts. He became a bustier, older, female version of himself. Then Tsunade appeared, observing her husband's infatuation with an unidentified woman. Once Jiraiya's beatings had begun, Konohamaru had reverted to his 5-year-old self. He cried out for Naruto to come save him in horror. Konohamaru's eyes and ears were spared the terrible sight because the blonde had arrived just in time. Konohamaru had been forced by Naruto to swear that he would only employ the technique in dire circumstances. The promise had been pinky. 3 days later, a furious Sandaime with a massive nosebleed confronted Naruto. Standing in the corner, smiling to himself, was Konohamaru. Hiruzen had inquired as to why Naruto believed that teaching Konohamaru that specific technique was essential. Naruto maintained that he instructed Konohamaru to use it only in dire circumstances. Konohamaru had merely responded that Hiruzen was making him eat his vegetables, which he detested, when they both questioned him about why he used it. The boy used the sexy no jutsu when it became too much for him. For the remainder of the month, Konohamaru had to eat vegetables every night. He needed to be fed by Naruto. Unless absolutely necessary, the two had vowed never to employ the technique in front of the Sandaime again.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.